Do you like your new job? The pilot asked me. To be honest, I loved my job at the laboratories, I replied. But it is nice to finally sit in the spaceships I've spent so long working on. My name is Robert Dykman. I am a scientist. By the time I turned 30, I had designed and tested spaceships on 3 different planets of our galaxy. This was the first time I actually worked as a co-pilot on a mission. Admittedly, I was a little nervous, but I was grateful to be part of one of the most exciting types of jobs. I was on an exploratory ship with Captain Ramon Bravo. The ship was one of our best models. Practical, incredibly fast, surprisingly resourceful for its size. And the captain, well, it was an honor to work with him. Plus, he adored his job. Actually going out and exploring the universe around us is an underappreciated task nowadays, he told me with a nostalgic tone. Well, I shyly added, most things we'll see were already noticed by our satellites, Captain. He shook his head with amusement and toyed a little with the controllers in front of us. Satellites can't do everything. They only notice the things that they are programmed to notice, right? Wouldn't you like to be surprised? His last word was accentuated by a frown on his face and a red light starting to blink on our panels. Are you trying to scare me? I chuckled. I had designed ships like this one. I knew how scary a red light could be. It's not me. Ramon shook his head. Take a look. Our radar just stopped working. Radars can't stop working, I nervously retorted. That would leave us stranded in the middle of nowhere. Hopeless and helpless, and with only a few hours to... Robert. The captain said my name firmly to shake me down from my panic. Focus. You know what you're doing. Look, the radars appear to be alright, but they just refuse to show what's ahead of us. I leaned forward to take a closer look, and he was right. The ship's radar were completely functional, showing everything around us, except what was way ahead. It looked like a clear circle with the top just sliced off. There was nothing there. Maybe it's clashing with the satellite's signal, Ramon wondered. But I shook my head. No, look, we left the last satellites behind a while ago. This means we're really in unexplored territory. And the territory apparently doesn't want to be explored, Ramon whispered. Carefully, he made our ship move forward slowly, getting closer and closer to the source of the mysterious effect on our radar. But we couldn't see anything. Movement, warmth, radio signals, depths. All our signals got cut off on that spot. It wasn't even blurry or a spot in the radars. It was a clean line slashing through our screens. It was a wall. A wall? I mumbled and repeated myself so my partner could hear me. A wall. It's like there's a wall blocking our path. Ramon laughed. It's space, Robert, he said. But I noticed the tension on his brow. There can't be walls. I don't see anything blocking. I don't see anything there. It's space as I've always seen it. Could it be a new type of matter? Something we can't notice. I wondered why I frantically tinkered with our controllers, trying to get as much information as possible. I can't tell how far this barrier goes or how long it is. I can't figure out anything about it. There's nothing there, the captain insisted. There can't be. You said it yourself. Our satellites have seen it all. Not all. Not this far, I replied. Bullshit, he barked. What are you suggesting? That this is the end of the universe? Come on. He laughed bitterly. I could tell that the uncertainty and lack of explanation were driving him a little mad. He started moving the ship again. A little faster, a little less carefully, and his movements were jerky and less precise. Ramon, Captain, please calm down. I tried to soothe him and slow down the ship, but it was useless. We reached the barrier and we crashed. Lightly thanks to me pulling the brakes and the captain's quick reflexes despite his state of mind. But the fact remains, we had just crashed against an invisible wall. Our eyes weren't lying. After the front of our ship touched the invisible barrier, What we were seeing was an endless space blinked and blurred for a couple of seconds before steadying again. It wasn't space at all. It seemed to be some sort of projection, an image put over a physical obstacle on our path. Incredible, I said, astonished. Impossible, the captain cried out. Our ship took the impact well. Despite our lights blinking and the alarms going off, nothing appeared damaged. Well, besides our conception of the universe. There was a long, intense pause where we both got lost in our troubled thoughts. But finally, the captain asked me, "Do you think... if this was a secret, they wouldn't have sent us both here, right?" I perfectly understood his point. No. I shook my head. I have a feeling we are the only two people aware of the existence of this wall. I started breathing heavily. I was panicking again, but this time the captain made no effort to stop me from rapidly darkening my thoughts. I also have a feeling that this wall was fabricated. It is not a natural presence. Someone or something outside of all norms of regulations created this. I know that you and I are completely alone. The nearest satellites might catch a distress signal, but it'll be too long before any sort of rescue could find us. We have absolutely no way of knowing what this wall is, why it's here, what's on the other side, and who or what put it there. My heart was beating out of my chest. My hands were shaking. I was sweating. I felt on the verge of a precipice. This was worse than a black hole. Still, Ramon caught the way I was holding something back. "But," he tentatively prompted me, "but I'm dying to figure out all those answers," I whispered. At first, he looked horrified by the mere suggestion. I couldn't blame him. I looked like I was seconds away from fainting. But I was a scientist that had literally just crashed against an impossible obstacle. The only thing on my mind was this invisible wall. Countless hypotheses, and a desperate need to get to the other side of this problem. Metaphorically, and quite literally too. The captain started moving the ship backward and away from the wall. "You are mad," he told me. "You have absolutely lost your mind. We are lost alone in space, facing something unreasonable, impossible, unimaginable. And you want..." He trailed off, thought about it for a second, and prepared the attack systems of the ship. "Do you want to try something?" His question definitely intrigued me. We barely thought twice about it. In a matter of seconds, we shot 3 quick blasts at the barrier. Once again, the image of the endless space blinked, ruining the illusion before restoring itself. I heard the captain groan in frustrations before we started shooting again. Our projectiles did little to no damage to the wall. But after a minute of this, the captain stopped so we could see the results. After the image steadied again, it wasn't the same. There were gray spots all over, like a ruined screen, some cracks here and there. The illusion was over. The wall wasn't invisible anymore. It was obvious. But the most obvious part, the thing that made both of us gasp in terror, were the words. "Desist!" The words appeared in giant red letters over the surface of the wall. They were so big the red light covered our entire ship. The letters were there for a second at most, but still, it was beyond ominous and it took our breath away. This was enough to make me lose my mind. The repercussions of that combination of letters was unmeasurable. This unthinkable wall in the middle of nowhere had just communicated with us. In English, signaling not only intelligent life behind it, but creators' knowledge of who and what we were. I couldn't resist. I took over the controls, fired up the ship's engines, and drove it forward, as fast as it could go in that short distance. This time, the crash against the wall made our entire cabin shake. The lights flickered. The alarm started to ring loudly. Warning lights lit up all over the controls. Damage was done to our ship, but to the wall as well. There was a noticeable dent on the surface that made me grin. "Are you crazy?" Ramon asked me when he recovered from the shock. "You could have killed us. This thing could explode or attack us." "Or what else?" I asked him. My partner frowned. or send another message, or open up, eat us, make us disappear, or not, he mumbled. His expression grew thoughtful, and when he looked me in the eyes, I noticed they were sparkling with curiosity. Or something could come out. I whispered back at him. Someone, people, monsters, hallucinations, planets, aliens, anything at all. The captain looked disturbed, and I had never been as scared or as excited as I was at that moment. We couldn't keep talking though. The dent I had caused on the wall started to tremble, and then one by one, little pieces of the wall started to fall off. They floated away in space slowly, weightless. Ramon and I watched marveled as the barrier broke down in front of us. We couldn't utter a word. By the time fear started to overpower all of our other feelings, it was way too late. At first, it looked like beyond the wall there was only empty space with stars in the distance. But the stars started to blink, and multiply, and move. And those were the eyes watching us. Dozens, hundreds of them. Bright as stars, but soulless and undoubtedly not human. We couldn't see anything else. Planets, other constructions. One more word. There was nothing but those unblinking eyes staring at us from every angle. As the hole on the barrier continued to grow, the eyes started to move away, as if opening space for us. The captain glanced at me, and almost imperceptibly, I shook my head. It took us way too long, but we had finally regained what had remained of our senses and reason. There are limits you aren't meant to cross, even in the endless expanse of outer space. Ramon moved slowly, placed his hands on the controllers, and tried to move the ship backward. The damaged engines protested, and warning signs lit up on our entire cabin, but the ship moved, for a moment at least. Because a second later, everything stopped, and then the ship started moving forward. Ramon scrambled to get the controls to do as he demanded, and from the co-pilot seat, I imitated his movements desperately. The engines roared, but they were helpless. The ship wasn't moving on its own accord. We were being dragged forward. An invisible force was attracting our entire ship, closer and closer to the wall, until we were crossing it. We had no idea what we were entering. We knew nothing but its deep darkness and fortress we had just ruined. When our ship was fully on the other side of the wall, we stared at the screen showing us the space behind us, and we watched with tears in our eyes the way the wall rebuilt itself, locking us inside. The last thing I remember is an endless void speckled with sparks of light that blink as they study my every movement. I come back to myself with a gasp. As I struggle to get my labored breathing under control, I take a look at my surroundings and review the facts. Everything around me is dark, except for a few lights still blinking on the control panel in front of me. I'm still strapped to my seat. Beside me, there's Captain Ramon Bravo, still passed out. My name is Robert Dykeman, and we made a terrible, terrible mistake. We were on an exploratory mission in space, and when we found the end of the satellite signal, we came across an unexpected barrier, a sort of invisible wall built in the middle of space. Our curiosity made us crash our ship against this wall, until we were dragged to the other side against our will. And then, my head starts to hurt and I close my eyes tightly. But when I open them again, I immediately scream. There, on the glass in front of me, there's a hand. Just a human hand, I think. Completely out of place. Completely impossible. Just resting there on the glass outside of our ship. I scream, and I scream until my throat feels like it's going to split wide open. And then I wake up. Again? Was that a dream? My mind is a scrambled mess. But if dreaming or not, I was so scared by a simple human hand out of place. What I'm seeing now is so unexpected that I'm stunned into complete silence. I'm afraid my brain is unable to process it. I'm scared this experience will give me a heart attack. But then I feel hands on my shoulders and a voice asking me, Robert, are you okay? Hey, breathe, please. I'm here with you. It's Ramon, my partner in this mission. He's wide awake now. His eyes go back and forth between my terror-stricken expression and the sight that's right outside our ship. I can't believe it. I can't understand. I mumble. All I can do is try to avoid looking for sense, logic, and reason. I have to accept what I'm seeing at face value for now. The thing is, out there, what we see outside our ship is just nature. It looks as if we had just dropped down in the middle of the most inconspicuous forest imaginable. It's so pretty and nearly perfect. It's as if it had come alive from a picture book for kids. But at the same time, it's so unremarkable that I can think of 100 places like this one just in one of the planets I've been to before. It feels unfamiliar, and like I've been camping there a dozen times before. The feeling is unreal and brings goosebumps to my skin. What happened? I asked Ramon, though I already had a feeling he has to be as clueless as I am. Well, he says, it looks like something went wrong during takeoff, and instead of leaving our planet, we only crashed down in the middle of some forest. His words immediately make me tense and I nearly jump off my seat. I can feel my heart accelerating. Feels on the edge of a precipice. Did I go mad? Was all of this a hallucination? The pure terror in my face must have alarmed my partner, because he puts a comforting hand on my shoulder and then he says, But that would be impossible, right? And you remember what happened. Please tell me you remember what happens. Of course I do, I reply. The wall, the entrance, the eyes. Look! Ramon turns his head away from me to look through the front glass of the ship. There, in the shadows between the trees and the darkness of the bushes, there are those brilliant little eyes like stars, blinking and staring directly at us. Fascinating, Ramon mumbles. Do you think we should go head out and explore further? Robert, are you okay? When he turned toward me again, my friend noticed my state of distress. Seeing those eyes in the dark corners of the forest awoke a powerful memory I desperately tried to block or overcome through the years. I'm staring at the eerily familiar forest, and I remember being a lonesome kid running away from bullies during camp and getting lost in the forest. I see those unnatural eyes staring at us, vulnerable in our broken down ship, and I remember the cold of the night, the hunger, the fear, and the glowing eyes of wild beast. Then, I feel the eyes getting closer and closer as if they could read my mind. We're supposed to be lost in space, miles away from the forest and pain. But still, my whole body aches with the phantom pain of feral animals biting through my flesh when I was only just a kid. Get me out of here! I yell. My brain distantly registers Ramon's worry and fear at my outburst, but I don't care. Get me out of here! Get me out of here! I can't do this again. I can't! The animals will eat me! They still want me! I know it! I've been here before. I see it in my nightmares and now I'm back! Please, God, just get me away from here! My desperate cries must have unsettled my partner badly. But they work. Okay, calm down, Robert, please. He repeats again and again, trying to soothe me down while my body thrashes around on my seat and tears stream down my eyes. Ramon fights against the controls of the ship and the agonizing engines, but he gets the ship to start up. Calm down, Robert, please. Try to get a grasp of your mind. This is not the forest from your childhood. You're safe. This is different. This is impossible. The ship starts to move, but as we should have maybe expected at this point, it doesn't happen as it should. We don't move forward. We don't move upwards. Instead, our ship starts moving in reverse, something it shouldn't be able to do. We are being dragged backwards, Away from the trees. Away from the glowing eyes. Faster and faster. We're falling. Put on your seatbelt. Ramon yells at me as he prepares himself on his own seat. There's a brief moment of pure silence, and it feels like we're back in space, completely suspended without gravity. And then, the splash. We've fallen onto a body of water, and we're sinking, quickly, unstoppably. In a matter of seconds, we're below the surface. And in a minute, we'll start losing sight of the light. I'm terrified out of my mind. Obviously. I've barely recovered from that intense feeling of being back at the spot where I experienced my most intense childhood trauma. And we're thrown here. The memory strikes me all at once. A terrible experience I didn't live myself, but I heard coming from the lips and the tears of the man sitting beside me. Ramon starts screaming before I figure out what to do. No, not this. Anything but this. Damn it. He starts furiously slamming his hands on the control panel in front of him. He hits the buttons with desperation, and he jerks the controllers one way and another, doing anything and everything he can to get out of this situation. But it's hopeless. Ramon, please, listen to me. Please, listen to me. We have to get out of here, I tell him. I try to reason with him, but there's no point. Even if he wasn't struggling against the suffocating grip of trauma, I have a feeling we still wouldn't be able to leave this sinking ship and swim to the surface in time. We're sinking so fast. It's getting so dark and so cold I can't stop shivering. Don't you get it? Ramon yells at me. I've been here before. I was only 6 years old and I was convinced I was going to die. I remember it now. It's just like this. I'm so cold. And there's so much pressure around me. And I'm sinking. Robert. I try to swim, but something's dragging me down. I want to scream for help. Scream for my parents. But that would kill me. As if I wasn't already dead. And I'm dying again. The pure desperation in his voice makes tears fall from my eyes. And my body shakes. I can picture the terror of a little boy drowning during his first visit to a lake so clearly. And I ache for him. But now we're living his worst nightmare again. And I can't shake him out of it long enough for us to escape. You're not alone now, Ramon. You didn't die then, and you're not going to die now. I tell him at the same time I wrap my arms around him. I try to be as gentle as well as reassuring. But the truth is, I don't think we're gonna make it out of this alive. Doom is closer than ever. This spaceship wasn't made to dive in the water. It's just a matter of time before the systems malfunction. A short circuit starts a fire, walls cave, water floods in. Anything could kill us now. Lack of oxygen that will dry our lungs up painfully. A fire or an explosion that will burn us alive bit by bit or all at once. Maybe the structure of the ship will crumble down around us, crushing our bodies to dust. Perhaps the water will get in and my friend's greatest nightmare will come true. The water will fill every dark corner of this room just like our lungs. And as the lights go off in every light bulb, so will die the light in our eyes. Eyes? Ramon whispered. I don't remember eyes before. He lifts his head from my shoulder and I look at the glass in front of us as well. We pull back from our embrace and stare at the wide expanse of water surrounding us. It's not at all dark anymore. There are those eyes again. Dozens, maybe hundreds of them. They're showing up all around us. They shine so brightly. They blink slowly. They float on the darkness and stare directly at us. Suddenly, it's harder to breathe. I'm starting to shake. I feel all my muscles tense up. I'm so cold. I have goosebumps, and I'm once again convinced we're going to die. Are we dead already? I wonder. There's a horrified scream stuck in my throat, but I don't manage to speak a word. The eyes are getting brighter and brighter, bigger and bigger. I'm scared they are going to swallow us alive. Take us into their light and eat our souls here in this endless and incomprehensible darkness we're in. Suddenly, for a brief second, all the eyes close, and we are consumed by darkness once more. But when they open again, the light is blinding. It's so strong. It's an all-encompassing light and it burns. Ramon and I scream and try our best to shield our eyes. We squirm and fall to our knees as we continue to scream until I feel my eyelids getting really heavy. I succumbed to unconsciousness as darkness engulfed my vision. When I regained consciousness again, I'm more confused than I've ever been. There are so many sounds surrounding me. I can hear subtle voices. There's a pressure over my face. I try to move, but I'm somehow restrained. Finally, I managed to open my eyes. The surprise could have killed me. But after so many shocks in the last hour, I think my brain just couldn't afford to be immediately started. No. This time the fear starts somewhere at the back of my head like a feeble candlelight. Soon, it would grow into a massive forest fire that would take over my every thought. But first... Hey, you're awake! A stranger tells me as they look down on me. I blink, scared, and look around me, looking for something that makes sense. They're pushing me forward on a gurney. There's a mask giving me oxygen. Blinking lights alert me of the presence of an ambulance. There's a big commotion all around me, and a few feet away, Ramon is in the exact same position as I am. Our ship is already far away from me. It's not in a forest. It's not in sinking water. It's not even floating in space. The ship is stationed in a professional and kind of familiar station. It's attached to a large mechanism like claws holding it firmly. It reminds me of the labs where I trained for this mission, the space simulators. The confirmation that the forest, as well as the water, had been a simulation makes me feel sick. Apologies for making you go through all that, the person, whom I assume to be a paramedic, tells me, but I turn my head to the side to avoid looking at them. I can't bear it. It's an automatic defense mechanism, they tell me. A little peek into your subconscious with a scan, fabricating an illusion of a significant scene from your past. Well, it proves to us that you're humans. It's just a little precaution, you know? Aliens have been knocking on our walls for millennia. But, you're one of us, right? You might just be a little sick, aren't you? I'm just one of them, aren't I? Ramon and I just got a little lost. We're just a little sick, aren't we? Except, when they get me inside of the ambulance, they hook me up to a different machine I've never seen before. And a sour smell immediately invades my senses. I don't know if it's poison or if it's anesthesia. I don't know if this is a different race or a different dimension. All I know is that before I lose all consciousness, I finally focus on the face of the nurse talking to me. And the last thing I see in her eyes, her body and face are that of a completely normal and ordinary woman. But her eyes, glowing eyes like little stars that observe me and let me know for sure that whatever this isn't my home.
We weren't even born as a species. We weren't even a glimmer in evolution's eyes. We were simply non-existent. Yet, they thrived as one of the biggest and grandest civilizations in the universe. If not also one of the youngest. Oldest from our perspective, actually. It took them close to 35 million years to reach our galaxy and solar system from their own. So, you can imagine their surprise when they realized that there were other life forms out there. The reason why we called the discovery our own was because we had spotted them inadvertently when we were mapping out the brightest galaxies, some 3 centuries before their arrival. We didn't know what we were looking at back then, and that they weren't even looking. It was a funny story, and it sounded like it could have been the perfect intergalactic meet-cute. Until they actually got here. They appeared in our skies as gods would, distant, superior, and unimaginably powerful. On the way here, they had evolved, changed, mutated, and persevered so much more than can ever be described from our minuscule earthling perspective. Everything that they had achieved in their generational spaceship convoy on a technological level cannot be understated either. The complexity of their technology made calling it magic the most appropriate thing. Whatever had been left from their base civilization was completely unknown to them when they arrived here, and even less of it can be known to us. Ever. They had created not one, but hundreds of thousands of spacefaring, spaceborne civilizations that had risen and fallen right on the main spaceship and spawned its many satellite ships over time. The guiding vessel, or the main ship, which we can only presume was the first, if the first was ever even preserved, held only the highest-ranking officials and royals. Its name, as much as we would eventually translate it, was the ground I walk on. None of them remembered why they left their home, so our biggest guest came from calculations our scientists made long ago. The consensus among the scientific community was that their sun had collapsed upon itself, rendering their homeworld uninhabitable. However, the extraterrestrials seemed generally uninterested in the place they came from. They behaved as if they had always been on those vessels, as if their many feet had never been pulled down by gravity that wasn't artificial. And, in a way, that was true. When we asked them if they had made any colonies along the way, considering the technologies they possessed and the many potential life-bearing planets they had passed, they could not wrap their minds around it. In fact, most of the royals referred to themselves as spaceborne, as if it were some kind of status symbol within their current societal structure. All of this information was something that we weren't cognizant of in the beginning, as you may already know. It took centuries under their dominance and guidance for us to finally be able to understand fragments of their language and history. This is why I'm recording this story for you, Bobo, so that you too can know of them, and so that you don't resent them. But mostly, I want you to understand what your big sis did for you, Bobo, so that you don't hate me anymore either. What had started as an innocent mission of peace a few centuries ago, led by others like Grandfather, had turned into something much more important. Before him, and later also me, none had stepped on the great vessel that led the convoy. While our predecessors were granted only access to the satellite ships, Grandfather and I were the only two humans that had ever boarded the main ship in the centuries since their arrival, and the only two that had ever laid eyes on the spaceborne. I was always aware of how you down there called us, and the others that ascended before us. I couldn't blame you for it. From your perspective, we were collaborators. However, I and all those before me saw ourselves as your champions. My first day on board the main ship was blanketed by so much overwhelm that I can barely remember it as I do any other day of my life. I'm not even sure how I even got them to notice me and take me on board their most treasured vessel. To even perceive what was around me took me quite some time. Then, the advance to understand what I began to perceive was aided by Grandfather, who had been there for the better part of at least 5 decades, possibly even more. Clad in an all-white gown, with the air of holy wisdom around him, he was more than glad to have another of his own join him in his mission. Grandfather had almost lost hope that those of us left on the surface of Earth could still see the glory and importance of our cosmic visitors turned saviors. His days were numbered as a human, and I was to take his place as ambassador. My work would allow me knowledge beyond the scope of the human mind that I, for now, still possess, and will, until I as well am replaced. However, that cycle will not continue forever. Once the last living human is incorporated within the body of the saviors, there will be no need for ambassadors. It is then, Bobo, when you will have realized that you never had any alternatives. This cosmic convoy will be joined with humanity. It remains your choice whether you will accept the loving embrace of the spaceborne, or be culled like cattle. My task as ambassador is to advise you to decide upon the former. My wish, as your sister, is for you to choose it gladly. What I now think was the first year on board the ground I walk on was the first year of my new life. Nothing can compare to it, Bobo. not even giving birth to my first, and not even giving birth to my second daughter. Grandfather had often recalled his beginnings on the ship, and he would often compare his initial hardships to my current privilege of having someone guide me on the road already taken by him. He didn't have the advantage of shared language, and certainly not the advantage of being treated as a living being with biological and psychological needs. The spaceborne were unaware that he needed food to sustain his body, and even less that he needed companionship to sustain his mind. By his description, he was more of a pet and a plaything to them than he was ever an equal being. It took him getting dangerously ill for the spaceborne to realize that if he were to live, they would have to take care of him properly. The accounts of others that had lived and died on the satellite ships show a much different picture about the treatment they got there, and that had its own reasons. Whatever changes that had happened on a grander scale among the extraterrestrials, they happened on the main ship. However, the other changes, the lesser ones, the painful ones that needed more blood and sweat to be overcome, those changes were strictly kept within the boundaries of the satellites. This is why the ambassadors that had ascended to those ships were treated as fleshy beings that hurt and die. The spaceborne had no notion of these things. The ground I walk on was stripped from disease eons ago, and there is very little account of how the old beings who lived on that ship truly are. I am certain that they do perish eventually, if anything by their own hand, but they are as indifferent to it as you or I are indifferent to breathing. This might make them seem cruel and even brutal at times. I know, but that is simply a problem of method, not a problem of intent. Evil wants to hurt, Bobo. However, they simply have no conception of that. Not anymore, and surely not for a very long time. Can you even fathom the time span it took them to arrive close to our little speck of dust in the vast universe? I dare not imagine that the consequences of longevity are those, for how could I ever wish that for myself, for you, and for all? I battled with these questions since I became aware of them, and made my peace by choosing an answer. This is why I willingly remain among the spaceborne as an ambassador. The satellites were of a completely different nature. As much as I could learn from grandfather's unreliable stories, those ships were the ships of dynamic change, or as one might also see them, the spacefaring labs, primarily designed for physiological and psychological experimentation. However, you shouldn't fear the satellites, Bobo. Only the first culls of Earth were brought there, and they represent the price paid for what the likes of you would be able to enjoy once you joined the convoy. Prodding and dissecting should not be an eventuality of your future, for the change that would come to those that would board the vessel now would be much less painful, though still very dramatic. The experiences of the first culls should be to you as grandfather's experiences are to me. However, I, myself, will remain a being in between, since my mind cannot be, by all means, complete. For if I am able to remain capable of communication and of humanity, I shall not be fully integrated into the body of the extraterrestrials. Unlike those of you that are yet to board, once my purpose has been fulfilled, I shall be left to continue changing until I resemble nothing capable of speech. This is when I shall be replaced. In the 5th year of my current life, as I stepped on the ground I walk on, I first began to notice these changes within me. Subtle at first, but as time went on, and as I was more integrated with the lives of the spaceborne in the ship, the changes began to show all the more. If I were to come back to the earth and gaze into your eyes, in this instant, you would not know it as your big sister standing before you, but another, wholly other. This is the gift that I had to receive upon ascending, and the gift that was withheld from grandfather. Each step might be a step upward. However, it is also a leap into darkness. The details of the step are gruesome and entail much suffering, especially for human sensibilities. But I assure you, my dear brother, once it is taken, there is no more need for the same sentiment. The extraterrestrials that live out their lives on the satellite ships are far different from the spaceborne. I am convinced that most of them had never been allowed passage on the main ship, simply because they had once been creatures that had lived full lives upon other planets. Yes, Bobo, there is other intelligent life in the universe, apart from our godlike visitors. Or should I say, there was much more of it, before they had stumbled upon it during their long journey. It took me quite some time to understand this, even though grandfather had told me much about it ever since I had arrived on the ship. The spaceborne had become so accustomed to the genetic changes added to their own form, the many life forms they had assimilated, that they do not even see those as life forms, separated from themselves. If the extraterrestrials that left their homeworld some 35 million years ago were once one race, what they have become over time, through the mastery of genetic engineering and artificially induced evolution, is a container of the many codes of life. This should also account for their hideous appearance, the appearance that at first terrified and disgusted me beyond measure, has now become the only representation of beauty in this vast and cold universe. To be in the company of a spaceborne is to be in the company not of a monster, but that of a work of art. Each of them is a unique and complex masterpiece, where each stroke of the brush is taken from the endless genetic pool gathered along the way. Some of them may have tentacles, others no appendages at all, and some even walk on 2 feet. None, though, is the same as the other. Yet they are all still one, with one language, and with a structured society. Has this spelled out the idea of how they were able to survive for so long, Bobo? Can you now imagine humanity surviving together with them? The current structure of the human flesh and consciousness are merely limitations to existing in the universe. Within the convoy, we would be forever, or until there are no more living things left to cull. For one must wonder what fuels the perpetual life of the extraterrestrials. They do not procreate and feed by natural means, for their entire existence derives from the artifice of mixing and matching those properties of the living that they find useful, or sometimes simply interesting. Fortunately, the byproduct of their way of being is in the conservation of the make and properties of the ones they assimilate, in one way or another. While I would agree that there is a kind of brutality in that way of being, the argument would come from the side of me that still conforms to some kind of human nature. I have already seen and experienced so many things on this vessel that seeing life in the way I had seen it before seems like a step backwards. These extraterrestrials were once like us, I must believe. As proof, I shall mention simply the many iterations of civilized society that they had shifted through over the millions of years spent in the vacuum of space, surrounded by only themselves. They are not too keen on keeping historical records, ever since a malfunction caused their ship to wipe all of the accounts they once had of their homeworld and of their journey up to that point. As little of it that some of them remember, that was a time of darkness and uncertainty, where all of their worst characteristics surfaced as they wandered aimlessly. Others of the spaceborne interpret the malfunction as the moment they became what they are now, as if the slate was wiped clean, and they were able to truly introduce their new ideas into their old ways. It is telling that those who speak of the time with reverence are the ones who have noted it as an important historical moment in their becoming. It is also a question of how the brutality of the survival in those moments that caused the malfunction had further influenced who they are now. Imagine being on this spaceship some 20 million years ago. This was about the time of the Great Darkness. As sustainable as they had made their vessel, it took one small snack to render it incapable of being a home. I might never know exactly what happened, but I can guess. Little was left of their race after that incident. And it's a question of how much of the original ship was left as well. Whatever the extraterrestrials from 35 million light years away had done to survive, it sure wasn't civilized. Before the gods that they are now, they must have been vile and pathetic little creatures to endure the cold, empty void of space. This is a true testament to the power of change and their current iteration as a species. One can only pray they remain as loving and as soft as they are at the moment. For if they are again to fall from grace, no one can help us, or anyone else in the universe. It is better to become a property of their fashion than to be an enemy of their existence. All the suffering endured once the changes have been initiated must be justified once the integration is complete. This is why I would rather choose total assimilation over total and unambiguous annihilation. I am now in what is to be my 10th year on board. Grandfather had died a few years back, and his body was left to mummify in one of the endless halls of the ground I walk on, almost perfectly preserved. He is the one and only monument of death on this eternal vessel. For the spaceborne, he might as well be a piece of lint, for they do not even perceive what is left of him. For me, his corpse is the one and only proof that I too was once human. The changes that I am going through have slowed down until a replacement is found, or at least until the rest of you yield under the conditioning done to you on the surface of Earth, and the last culling had been concluded. I wish I could say that I miss what once made my own flesh and blood. Eyes, arms, even hair. I wish that I missed being able to walk, instead of slithering on the icy metal flooring like a slug, leaving behind me a trail of what is left from the body of a human woman. I am grateful to still have my mind and my voice, so that I can record what it is like to be part of this historic moment of cosmic connection. Don't be afraid when you, at last, are standing face to face with one of these beings. Though they might not resemble anything you had known as extant on our planet, or look like everything that was ever there all at once, they do not mean you harm. To remind you, they don't even know what harm means. In the centuries past, they have already incorporated the characteristics of various animals from Earth, and they particularly like different kinds of bones and other calcified tissue. You may see rows of teeth and gaping mouths that never consume anything. You may notice growths that resemble horns or antlers, but they are of no purpose. You may witness whales that can walk on spider legs or spider bodies mounted on wings. In the past decade, the fashion of having eyes has become increasingly popular on the main ship. And for those purposes, they have even mounted new lights around the vessel, so that the spaceborne can now be seen as some of Earth's animals do, can perceive the riches of the ground I walk on, and gaze upon each other's endlessly varying faces. If only I could myself see their expressions. Do not be horrified, Bobo. Accept it, for it is in your future, and in the future of everyone you know or ever cared for in your human life. You must also understand that the current conditions on Earth are merely the device for making humanity meeker and more malleable for the dynamic change that is to be completed upon your ascension in the convoy. The creatures on the satellite ships are still working through the process of assimilation, but once they can be fully merged into the high society of those that populate the ground I walk on, they too will become spaceborne eventually. What the extraterrestrials have learned from me, and the rest that have already been taken, they have already introduced back to Earth as a preparatory step for your eventual integration, in body as well as in mind. See not your current predicament as slavery, but as the much-needed indoctrination into higher-order thinking and doing. Our cosmic visitors are teachers, far more than they are masters. As a teacher yourself, I'm sure you are aware of the level of authority and dominance that must be asserted to the younglings to make them behave and accept the rules of integration into adult society. This is what has been done to me, and you, and to all. Once humanity has joined them, they shall no longer be alien to us, nor we to them. There shall only be one, in as many iterations as you can imagine. Lastly, Bobo, my dearest little brother, I hope that you too can see Grandfather and me, as we see ourselves. Remember us not as collaborators, I beg of you, but think of us as the guardians of humanity, that would make sure our cosmic legacy survives, so that humanity becomes part of the cosmic catalog that the extraterrestrials had been, are, and will continue collecting within their own growing body. I love you, Bobo. I wish you could still love me too. Do not fight. Accept and persevere.
What you just heard was the first and last recorded letter that my sister Anna had sent me over a decade ago. She was the only one, apart from Mother, to ever call me Bobo. However, she lost that right the minute she decided to board one of those vessels and aid the invader. I no longer care about her fate, and whatever she has become is of little importance to me. Damn be those that accepted another fate, and pity on those that were taken before they could make their choice. If I remember Anna, I will only do so with scorn. She was not a champion of humanity, but became a champion of the invader that would rather see us as accessories than as conscious beings. The few of us left might not have much need for understanding of the wretched beings that have rained terror on our home for the past half millennia. But there is something to be learned from this message. There is indeed something of magnanimous importance that we have to learn to accept, and that should propel us forward instead of pushing us further into darkness. Nothing more human remains on this planet than the ones of us that are here. There never will be anyone like me or you or Joe and Jane. We are the last, the only. And for that fact alone, we must hide to survive, so that this enormous universe has account of us, that we shall tell ourselves by living as ourselves. While we might not know what awaits us on the surface if we ever leave our sheltered home underground, and we do not know how many lives the last culling will take, what we do know is that here we are what we have always been: human. No more and no less. Should we perish here, we would have perished as we were born, below the ground that we once walked on as earthlings.
Hey Creepypasta fans, thanks for listening.
To connect with and support us, make sure to check out our Discord and Patreon links in the description. And remember, stay cosmic.
Hey Creepypasta fans, it's Joseph with the Dark Cosmos. Enjoy tonight's sci-fi horror story, and remember, stay cosmic. A storm was approaching. I could see the dark clouds cluster in the distance as the cold breeze swept through the forest. The trees trembled under the force of the incoming breeze as the sound of thunder echoed in the distance. I had picked up high levels of radiation in the heart of Lockwood Forest, and from the look of it, whatever was buried deep in the earth was definitely worth digging up. My radiation detector device was all over the place, and despite warnings of an incoming storm, I sank my shovel deep into the earth and began to dig. The clouds soon descended as rain started pouring just as my shovel came into contact with something within the earth. I had finally gotten closer to my prize, and this gave birth to a sudden burst of energy. I began to dig faster. My eyes were soon greeted by a strange sight. "What in the world?" I exclaimed, and instantly jerked back in shock. I had spent decades as a researcher, and I was confident that whatever I had just seen was definitely not from this world. My heart raced faster as I shifted my gaze back to the strange fossil. I needed to get this immediately to my laboratory. Somewhere in the dark cosmos, an unidentified object can be seen heading towards the Earth with unreal speed. It looks like some sort of spaceship. Carl does a double take at his screen to be sure he was not seeing things. He had been working at the Space Control Center for a while, but this was unlike any strange object he has seen before. "Sir Logan, I think you need to see this." Carl's voice echoed throughout the room. "Keep a close watch on the object. If you notice anything strange, report instantly to HQ." A husky voice replied. "Yes, sir." The storm had calmed, and I was able to unearth the sinister-looking fossil. I was now moments away from making a groundbreaking discovery. Several thoughts strolled across my mind as I stormed into the military research lab. I carted away the strange fossil towards my laboratory, responding to several salutations at intervals as I continued down the path. I could sense several curious eyes staring at me, but I was not bothered. I had a great task ahead, and time was not a luxury that I had. The evening sun cast an orange hue across the sky as darkness began to creep in slowly. One thing was certain. I wasn't going to sleep until I had completed my research. The fossil was at least 7 feet tall, with indescribable features, and several extended appendages protruding from different parts of its body. A spherical structure that seemed like its head sat above its distorted body. Right from my childhood, I'd always been interested in xenobiology, the speculative biology of extraterrestrial life forms. And despite several remarks from a few of my colleagues in the military, I furthered my research even after joining the Army. I had taken several samples from the fossil, and had already begun to process my findings when I drifted into oblivion. I was, however, drawn back from my oblivious state by the beeping sound of one of the machines. I was right. The fossil was definitely not from this planet. But that wasn't what caught my attention. The results also revealed that whatever I had just dug out from Lockwood Forest was older than mankind itself. It predated back to the age of the dinosaurs. I ran the investigation again several times to be sure, but the results all came out the same, every time. I stared at the results in shock. We were not the first inhabitants of the Earth. Something else walked the length and breadth of the Earth before we ever came into existence. Something massive and totally different from us. Something alien. Not like it mattered anyway. I was proud to have made such a groundbreaking discovery, but these creatures were most likely extinct, and this discovery will probably end up in some museum downtown. But now, I know that we might not just be the only ones in the universe. I needed to get some sleep. I took a quick glance at the alien fossil before strolling out of my laboratory. Everyone in the Space Control Center held their breaths as they stared at the strange disc-like structure, which hovered in the large screen right in front of them. They had been monitoring the strange object since it gained entry into our stratosphere, and it was now obvious that there was something strange about this particular unidentified flying object. It strolled across the sky like it had a mind of its own. Was this some sort of weapon of war by a nation? Rumors spread like wildfire, but every nation denied involvement. Only a few people knew where the strange object had come from. "What do we do now, sir?" Carl asked curiously, fear evident on his face. "We wait. We are not sure about..." He was still speaking when the unidentified flying object came to a sudden halt. On the coast of Riverlandville. It was definitely an alien ship. Carl trembled in fear as he thought of what could probably happen next. This is not good, he stammered. Every news channel in the world was talking about the strange object, which descended from the heavens, but so far, no attack had been launched. Well, not until now. Suddenly, an ominous noise emanated from within the spaceship, as a powerful surge of energy pulsated around it. I was glued to the TV which hung calmly on the wall in my office, stunned at the sudden turn of events. My military uniform glittering under the fluorescent light. "Logan!" I shifted my gaze towards the source of the sound. "We need to go. Now!" It was my colleague. If this was really what I thought it was, then no one was safe. I was about to leave my office when the surge of energy that had been pulsating around the strange object suddenly erupted throughout the coast of Riversideville, and scores of sinister-looking creatures emerged from within, like the disc-like object. I have never seen these creatures before, but I will recognize their unique biology anywhere. They have very similar features to the fossil I had unearthed just a few days ago. Could this be a coincidence? I asked myself. I silenced my thoughts immediately. Now was no time for unnecessary debates, as I immediately grabbed my gun and stormed out of my office. Whatever just came out from that ship was definitely not a friendly next-door neighbor, and I had a duty to protect my country at any cost. Carl, they didn't need any more signs. It was an alien invasion. It sounded like some sort of fantasy tale, but it wasn't. It was real. In the midst of the growing chaos, a familiar voice echoed in the control hall of the Space Mission Control Center. "Carl, get the president on the line." I was very close to the coast of Riversideville, so I was at the forefront of the war. Nothing seemed to make sense, but it was no time to use our heads. We fought with everything we had. The aliens were totally not friendly. They launched everything they had, but we fought back hard. Luckily, our weapons could pierce their thick flesh. They were repelled with heavy force, and their attack was contained. The Battle of Riversideville lasted for about a week before we were able to take down their ship. We might have won the battle, but the new revelation that we were not alone in the universe haunted every mother and child. The aliens hovered in the air with multiple extensions beside their bodies. They launched their attacks through several pores on their bodies, which shot out acid-like substances and disintegrated anything upon contact. Luckily for me, I was permitted to run experiments on one of the captured aliens. I had the license to do as I wanted. Firstly, I ran bone samples and realized that I was right. It was a perfect match to the fossil I had dug up from Lockwood Forest just a few days ago. Perhaps they had been to Earth before, or maybe they were the first inhabitants of the Earth. Either way, they had been around a long time before man. What if they just wanted their planet back? I asked myself. What if this ship was just a scouting party to check out what was on Earth? How did they communicate? Several questions began to stroll across my mind as I drifted into oblivion. If they had been on the Earth before man, then there was only one thing that would bring them back. They wanted their planet back. I informed my superiors, and a few of them saw some wisdom in my words, and I advised them to be ready for another invasion. Various conspiracy theories began to circulate the internet about the origin and intention of the aliens, but I feared that none of that might matter if they decided to return for another invasion. 2 weeks after the previous attack, something appeared like stars in the midnight sky. We wanted to doubt it, but we all knew what it was. The aliens were back, and this time they had returned prepared for war. My fears had become reality. World leaders met to discuss the best way to tackle the incoming threat. They resolved to be the first to launch an attack. It was already clear that the aliens had not come in peace. They had brought their entire species, which indicated that they had no plans of losing the war. Earth had never been faced with such a situation before. We had just found out that we were not alone in the universe just a few weeks ago, and now we were at the brink of war and total extinction from an alien species. We fired several missiles toward them, but they all exploded before even getting close to them. They seemed to have surrounded themselves with a powerful force field, and this seemed to pose a more tasking situation. We needed another plan, and we needed a plan fast as the aliens were still descending into Earth's orbit. The spaceship soon entered the Earth, and the aliens were released into the Earth. The aliens had come to a halt, hovering exactly where their previous spaceship had also been. That was where their mother shop had decided to perch, very closely to Riversideville. And once again, I was at the forefront of the war. War had broken out all around the world, and every continent in the world was at war. It was very difficult for other countries that were not affected by the first invasion direction, and the death toll soon began to increase. Never has the world experienced an invasion as terrible as this. We had lost too many men in a very short time, and the war seemed endless. We were losing, and something had to be done. The mothership was almost impenetrable, but we had an alien in our holds. The alien was going to be our passport into the mothership. I had studied their species for quite some time, and through my knowledge of the aliens, we blocked off its communication ports, and using advanced drones, we carried the alien creature very close to the portal, and it responded and gave way. That was our chance. We launched several missiles through the open space and towards the mothership. For my research, I discovered that all the aliens were connected to their queen, who resided within the mothership. Most of the missiles which were shot in were destroyed, but one made it through, and I made a discovery that could change the course of the war. But I was going to need a lot of firepower to help me get close enough to execute my plan. I knew a friend who could get to the president. In the advent of war, prices had to be paid. Carl invited me to speak with a few of his colleagues, and if I could convince him about my plan, then they might just be able to grant me an audience with the president of Riversideville. It's just like in the movies, I began. I could spot Carl listening in the distance. Their queen is like the source of life and existence. If we can take out their queen, they're all going to definitely fall, I said. And how do you know that? Carl asked curiously. Several missiles were fired at the queen, weakening the force field around her. One of the missiles accidentally found its way into her nest and came in contact with her. All the aliens seemed to feel the pain simultaneously. If only we could get close to her. Close enough and detonate a nuclear bomb in her nest. I'm positive that it should work. Somehow I prayed in my heart that they listened to what I was saying. And who would do that? We all know that whoever strolls into that place would not come out alive. One of the men in the room asked curiously. I will, I replied instantly. An instant decorum engulfed the entire room as everyone stared at me with surprise. After a brief moment, Carl finally decided to break the silence. All right then, we'll make the call. The queen's nest was as big as the size of a stadium. I had taken the offer. Someone needed to get close enough to the queen for the bomb to be very efficient, and I had decided to take that seat. Everyone had given me a salute of respect before I embarked on the mission, and here I was, alone in the chopper, preparing to jump from above into the belly of the beast. I would say it was an honor to have served my nation until my last breath. I heaved a heavy sigh before jumping off the chopper and into the queen's nest. I could hear several melodies ring in my ears. It was truly an honor. I descended into the queen's nest, and when I'd got close enough, I pulled the trigger. A blinding light filled the entire place as the queen gave a dying scream. Like the sands on a seashore, a swim of souls swimming in pace.
For aspiring musicians, finding a cheap apartment with a spare room to have a small studio dedicated exclusively to their music
is both a goal and a miracle, but I achieved it. Marie and I found the perfect apartment, and then worked restlessly on this room to create the perfect space for rehearsing, composing, and simply playing music for the joy of it. But there's more to it than that, isn't there? Music isn't always joyful. There's a release in music. That's where we put feelings of discontent, anger, resentment, fear, and every unpleasant thing that's too heavy for one person to carry alone. There are more poetic ways to describe music, I imagine. But for me, in these cases, creating a song is like creating a monster and then letting it loose, so people can fight it or embrace it as they please. I could have never imagined that this would turn very, very literal and possibly cost me my life. Everything starts one day, late at night. I don't remember for how long I've been shut in this room playing different instruments, but I can tell my body is starting to protest, and it seems so is my mind. At first, I think it must be a trick of the light, because it's just a few sparks of light glimmering under the lamp across the room from me. I blink repeatedly to clear my vision, but it's useless. As I keep playing my guitar and my melody becomes heavier, the light dims and flickers. The sparks darken as well, and they stick to the wall of the room, like splatters of shimmering black paint. I frown, and as natural as music has always come to me, I feel my hands start to play faster, an anxious tune that reflects my puzzlement. The black spots then start moving. They look like spiders, and I'm beginning to feel a little scared now. The apartment isn't exactly new, and spiders aren't rare. But right now, I'm seeing at least a dozen spiders. All of them almost the size of my hand, crawling all over the wall across the room from me. They move slowly. They drag their thin little limbs. And then, as if they were dancing to my haunting song, they crawl faster and faster. I get goosebumps, as if I could feel that hundreds of little sharp legs crawling all over my arms. The sensation is so disgusting that my stomach protests. I gag and squirm in my seat. I bite my lip hard to keep my composure. I bite hard enough to draw blood. Then I have to look down to confirm that I'm okay. My arms are alright, but my fingers can't stop playing, as if they had a mind of their own. I'm scared by my own song, but also strangely fascinated by it. I'm not the only one. When I look up again, I'm convinced the spiders on my wall are dancing to the rhythm of my song. But there's a problem. They're changing form again. I almost laugh at myself. Am I dreaming? Hallucinating? This surely can't be something other than my sleep-deprived mind playing with me and coming up with impossible images. Nightmare or not, I'm a helpless witness as the spiders come together at the center of the wall. Inexplicably, they start melding together, forming a grotesque, large, dark stain on the wall. It writhes and expands, alive. And then, to the bewilderment of my own eyes, from the strange black mass of spiders comes forward a pair of white eyes that blink once, and then look straight at me. A high-pitched scream bursts out of me at the same time that I jump out of my chair, letting the guitar fall to the floor. At that exact moment, Marie opens the door. "Hey, are you okay?" she asks me. She's already dressed up for the day, making me realize with dismay that it's already morning. There's an amused smile on her lips, because it isn't exactly the first time that I've lost sleep because of music, and hopefully won't be the last. But there's an undeniable shade of concern in her eyes, and it gets worse when she shrieks and tells me, "Oh my god, Natalie! There's a spider on your arm!" I flinch and flick the spider off of me, but the feeling of it crawling over my arm is heightened by 1,000% when I think about what I had just seen in the other room. I immediately run to the bathroom, and vomit into the toilet bowl. Next thing I know, Marie is kneeling on the floor next to me, pushing my hair off my sweaty forehead, gently, and rubbing soothing circles on my back. "Natalie, are you okay?" She repeats her original question. Once again, I don't even have to reply. "You're pushing yourself too hard, love," she says. "You're overworking yourself and you know it. I would never tell you to give up music, but do you really think you can manage your gigs, teaching kids and doing a favor for the orchestra? I don't like seeing you like this." I take a deep breath and wipe my eyes with the back of my hand. I nod slowly and promise to her, "I'll take a break soon." What I don't suspect is that I need a break more than I realize. That this is actually something much bigger than me, and about to get way out of my hands. That afternoon, I was sitting in the living room of a well-off family teaching a 7-year-old boy how to play piano. This was my first job, a way to save money, but over the years I've fallen in love with teaching, and I can't seem to quit. Not every kid is exactly a pleasure to work with, but this one, a blonde-haired boy named Aaron, is perfectly sweet to make up for his parents' coldness. There is only one problem. This day, it seems I'm the one distracted. "I'm sorry, I have a little bit of a headache." I apologize to the little boy as I mess up for a second time the extremely simple melody I'm trying to teach him. "Too much music," I attempt to joke. But he innocently asks me, "Can you have too much music?" I'm about to answer that there's never too much music, but I remember the worry in Marie's eyes, and I have to nod. "Too much of anything can make you a little crazy. It gets out of your head and starts messing with your real life," I tell him. "Gets out of your head?" Aaron repeats slowly and nods his little head very seriously. "I've noticed it," he tells me. "Every time you've played the piano today, I see the way the lamp in the corner starts flickering. Do you think—" I don't get to hear what he was going to ask me. I furiously slam my hand on the keys of the piano. The sound it makes is awful, and it startles my little student so much that tears fill his precious green eyes. "I'm sorry!" I apologize again, quickly. "I'm so sorry, Aaron. There was just a spider on the keys." But when I lift my hand, there's no sign of the little monster I tried to kill. Aaron's words about the lamp flickering when I play, the spider playing with my head. It's all too much for me. I start to feel nauseous again, so before I risk losing this teaching gig, I apologize to Aaron's parents, inform his nanny that I'm leaving early for the day, and make my way to the door. But when Aaron says goodbye to me, he makes sure to whisper, "I saw the spider too." I walk away from Aaron's home with goosebumps on my skin, and my face as pale as a ghost. Perhaps Marie was right. I'm driving myself crazy working too much. I can't afford to genuinely get sick and miss days of work, so I have to make a few sacrifices. I make a call and cancel the gig I had later tonight. It hurts to miss an opportunity to play my own music, but it's my only option. I have another thing to do before the day ends, a promise I can't break. Before going out on my own, I was part of an orchestra. They were graceful when I abandoned them, and the people that came next on the piano were surely more professional than me. But it just so happened that their current pianist was abroad, and they urgently needed someone to fill their place. That's when they called me. I couldn't let them down again. There's a chance I'm losing my mind right now, but I don't have it in me to disappoint such kind and forgiving people that need me. I'm relentless the entire afternoon, and more than one person notices. An old friend offers to come up with an excuse for me so I can go home and rest, but I turn her down. I must look like hell, with dark bags under my eyes and angry red lines on my arms, where I've been scratching like crazy every time I feel those goddamn spiders on me. My hands are trembling, and I can't stop sweating and looking over my shoulder nervously. All things considered, I know that I'm a decent musician. I've been playing music since before I could talk. I've played with a broken finger. I've played until my fingers bled. I've played drunk, high, hungover, and heartbroken. I refuse to let a little hallucination stop me when I'm trying to help my friends, So I get dressed up, the curtains sway open, and the director flicks his wrist, and I start to play. The following 2 hours are, without a doubt, the worst I have ever lived. The songs I play are no longer familiar and pleasant. They are curses I'm willingly throwing over myself. My fingers on the black and white keys are actually pulling on the trigger of a gun, with each note hitting me right in the head. I try to play with my eyes closed as much as I can, but it doesn't help at all. I have to look away, helplessly, while my eyes betray me. It starts with a spider in my hand while I play. I have to make an insane effort to keep myself from screaming and furiously hitting the keys until the corpse of the insect stains the instrument forever. Then, it gets worse. I'm seeing spiders crawl all over the heads of the director, and some sneak inside trumpets and flutes that lead directly to the mouths and eyes of my friends. During the brief moments of silence, the terror stops. I wipe my eyes discreetly and pretend I haven't been silently crying the entire time. At least, this time I've managed not to throw up. But then we're back again. And every time I play, the room darkens. It gets colder, I feel lonelier, and soon my ears start ringing. The music is distorted, and I could swear there are spiders on my ears, whispering malign words to me. Since when did music turn into this malevolent thing? Who corrupted my greatest love, passion, my faith, and my life? I am enraged by this injustice. I don't want to accept that I've lost my mind, and I can't believe music could ruin me like this. This power can't be evil. There's something else going on. My resentment makes me play almost manically. My movements are frantic, and I lose my composure, but in some way, I'm playing better than ever. I'm playing like it's the last time. I'm playing like it's going to kill me, and it might. The song explodes my heart, and I couldn't care less about the rest of the world. Almost without noticing, the concert is over. Everyone's left, and I'm all alone, still sitting behind the piano, with my suit rumpled and my hair disheveled. I just want the nightmare to be over. Mindlessly, I press one of the keys. There are no spiders this time. We're back to the little sparks of light that float weightlessly somewhere above me. It is gone as soon as the note fades, so I'm compelled to try again. Every note elicits a new spark to come to life in the space above the stage. I'm mesmerized. I start playing a delicate, slow melody that makes the sparks dance like fireflies above my head. This is fascinating. Without Marie here to bring me back to reality and save me from myself, I can't stop playing, pouring all my passion once again. Even as the sparks start coming together in a specific point in the air a few feet above me, they swirl majestically and quickly, forming a nearly perfect circle. Suddenly, I can't see the ceiling of the theater anymore. There's infinite darkness coming from that opening that defies science, faith, and reason. Then, I see a pearly white pair of eyes blink at me from the other side, and I hear a voice.
I like this energy. This thing that you create, Metacolins. It would be easy to channel and use it for the control of others. Give it to me.
It's amazing that I can't stop playing, even now. Like I'm in some sort of trance. I'm not even scared anymore. I'm not disgusted. I'm not confused. I start laughing. Why would I do that? There is a groan so loud, I feel the stage shake, and the rain of little spiders fall on me like horrendous snowflakes. I close my eyes, shake them off my head, and listen as the eyes get closer to the open void, and the voice gets louder.
Because I am your god now, and I need it. I demand it. You choose, accept, and give up your mortal body for a life of glory, or deny me and rot in suffering for as long as you live?
Once again, I can't help but laugh through the tears. The rain of spiders continues to pour over me. They crawl over every inch of my skin, slip under my clothes, tickle my ears, and jump over my eyes. The terror I feel is absolute, and leaves no space for other emotions. But there is one undeniable truth that prevails in my mind, over everything else. You said, you need me. I say slowly. It's not the other way around. I make a pause while the reality of the statement settles in. I won't give in, I announce loudly and lift my hands off the piano. One by one, the sparks that created the portal disignite. The creature on the other side yells so loudly, I feel my ears start to bleed. The spiders all over my body die, as well as most of them fall off my body, like autumn leaves off a tree. I know this isn't the end. It might be the beginning of the torture, but I stand by my words. I won't give in.
It was a slow day out in the water, but that's unsurprising by now. I'm the owner and captain of a fishing boat, and this has been the worst season I've ever had. Some people say the end of the world is near. The fish are dying, the oceans are sick, and only billionaires will survive out in space. Some other folks say there's no need for getting apocalyptic about it, that this is just a bad luck streak, and we should work harder. Well, I say both sides of the debate have never set foot on a boat in their lives. They don't understand the sacred balance of nature. No one but a real fisherman can speak about the miracles of the sea, but also the curses. There's little time left of the day, and speaking from experience, I don't think we'll catch anything of great significance. At this point, I've had to let go most of my crew, leaving only a few essential friends with me. With all of us doing at least twice as much work to keep the boat afloat and working, but our circumstances are dire. My right-hand man, Thomas, approaches me while I stand on the edge of the boat.
Hey, Steven, should we head home?
He asks me, more defeated than even I am. I shake my head. Give us 1 more hour, Thomas, please. Now, give me a moment alone, please. I tell him. Thomas obeys silently, and I'm left alone on the deck of the bow. I contemplate the still surface of the water for a few seconds, but I know what I have to do. I feel it in my heart. I get down to my knees and close my eyes. Take a deep breath. And begin praying. Our Heavenly Father, thank you for one more day of hard work in these blessed waters. And thank you for the gift of life. Please, dear God, please listen to my desperate prayers. We're begging you, Father. Please give us something. For the salvation of our families, for the children, for our town, so we may continue to nourish and flourish. Please. Oh, please. Then, something happens. I'm a man of faith. I know how this works. The Lord works through me, and I feel the Holy Spirit through my soul, but Not like this. Never like this. Everything starts with a hum. It's over before I get to figure out if the humming I feel comes from around me or from the inside of my head. And then there's that sound. Very low, almost imperceptible, like a dog whistle that I'm barely aware of. But somehow it's missing the real sound of it. It gives me chills. Again, it's over before my mind can figure out if this is a sign from the Lord or a warning from something with devilish intent. The last thing I experience is a small hissing sound, like some sort of depressuring machinery, and the boat starts rocking softly on the previously still water. I open my eyes. There's a strange emptiness inside me, as if a great exhale had escaped my lungs without my permission. It's not the usual feeling I get after praying, but I'm immediately distracted by the sound of strong splashing in the water. I don't bother getting up from my knees. I crawl as quickly as I can to the edge of the boat and lean over to look down at the water. I hear the joyful cries of my crewmates. The same instant I catch sight of the absurd amount of fish in the water. So many of them push themselves over the surface and knock the hull of the boat. I can't control my ever-growing smile. That night, as I lay in bed, I feel satiated by the best and most delicious dinner I've had in a while. I can't even put into words the relief I feel by knowing that our catch of the day will get us enough money to not worry about bringing food to my family for many days. We worked so hard and for so long that our wives started to worry the pressure had driven us mad and would kill ourselves out on the sea. But here I am, alive and well, and with the unshakable feeling that something holy happened to me today. If there's an underlying feeling of anxiety about something not being quite right, well, I can ignore that for now. The next couple of days passed by in a similar fashion. Desolated waters, bad expectations, and then a miracle. Strange sounds like the ringing of a delicate bell or the breaking of ice. Strange feelings like dizziness and ringing in my ears. But as the days pass, the symptoms of the miracle intensify. My crew can experience it all with me now. We're in the middle of nowhere, and we can perfectly hear the static of a television. And then, the laughter of a little kid. It's an experience so surreal, it nearly breaks some of us. A mermaid! Thomas gasps as soon as he identifies the sweet sound. But this isn't good news. Quickly! Save yourselves! Cover your ears! Get away from the edge! He yells as he covers his own ears. Meanwhile, I'm paralyzed on the deck. I know the old tales as well as my friend. But something tells me this isn't a mythical creature working to seduce us. Stephen! My friend desperately calls out. What are you doing there, you fool? Move! She's going to take you! Don't listen to her! Oh my god, Stephen, move! What am I going to tell your wife and kids? My breathing gets ragged while I watch my best friend lose his mind. The other members of the crew are younger. They're more pragmatic. If anything, they're spooked by our sudden and inexplicable good luck. But they're convinced mermaids can be real, so they jump at Thomas. It takes two of them using all their strength to hold him down. Let me go, you bastards! Let me go, or she's going to get all of us! I can feel it in my chest! It's already inside me! Thomas yells so hard his voice cracks. He swings his fists and accidentally hits one of the other men, making them lose their patience. I can't bear to keep watching. And besides, there's nothing I can do. This is part of the miracle, and I can't act ungrateful in front of our Lord. So, instead of helping the others, I discreetly walk away. When I find a private spot, I kneel down and prepare to pray. Oh, Heavenly Father, forgive my brother Thomas. Forgive him, Father, for his lack of faith in you and your work. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He can't see the miracles you weave. Please, please, my Lord. Suddenly, I felt an immense cold throughout my body.
No, Stephen Cruz,
says a deep voice, far away, all around me, inside my own head. I'm so overwhelmed by this that I burst into tears. I fall down and press my forehead on the wooden floor while a salty stream trickles down my eyes. I don't even care about the realization that I'll have to fire my best friend. Forbid him from coming back fishing with me. All that matters to me at the moment is the absolute certainty that I heard God with my own ears. God? Oh, Father God, is it you? I wonder out loud and slowly raise my head, but the sight that welcomes me makes me scream and fall backward in a hurry to get away. I have to get away. There are eyes there, floating in the air, a few feet above the water and away from the ship, but undeniably dark eyes floating in a cloud of black smoke, and they're gone the second I blink. I'm left alone, shivering on the floor of my boat. What just happened? An angel, perhaps? An illusion? My conscience? Could my beloved God really look at his creation with such hatred? With such hatred in his eyes? I don't understand at all. The next few days proved to be very and unusually difficult. First, the members of my crew can't understand why I wouldn't forgive Thomas, my best friend and a sensitive man experiencing strange circumstances that have unsettled us all. But I can't find the words to tell them that God told me to leave him behind and then sent me to the image of a demon to convince me. They gave me perplexed and angry looks, whispered behind my back, and without meaning to, I make it much worse. I leave my crew all the work. I'm reduced to a shell of myself that only kneels on the deck of the ship, waiting for a sign, waiting for those eyes, waiting for my God to talk to me again. The fish are plentiful, but there's little I care about anymore. After days of silence, I find myself leaning over the edge of the boat to stare at the water, and my nightmares and prayers come true. The water darkens. It swirls violently. With the last shred of free will I have in me, I glance around and realize this phenomenon is only happening right below me. The rest of the sea is perfectly still. I focus on the slowly growing whirlpool on the water. One by one, dead fish start coming. But they're not only floating, they're disintegrating at an unnatural pace until all I see are sharp bones floating among algae and random trash and there's a light at the bottom. Something deep inside me knows that there's nothing sacred about that light. I watch mesmerized for minutes that could have been hours, but the worst is yet to come. Suddenly, the whirlpool disappears. The dead fish and dirt start to float aimlessly on the surface, and some of them sink back into the dirty oblivion. But there's something new, a dark silhouette coming closer and closer gaining definition, resembling a face, down human body more and more, until it's floating right under my face. At first, it's obvious this is a dead body, with a rotten smell accompanying its presence. However, I'm unable to move away. Not when I see the body start to move. My mouth falls open, ready to scream for help, but then it clicks that the body isn't moving. It's just a head. It's rotating by itself, twisting the neck in a way so impossible it would surprise anyone, if not for the fact that the face looking up at me is myself. The face is mine. A complete and absolute terror paralyzes me, and I feel like throwing up. I'm staring right at my face. Dead, green, sick, and rotten. Holes in my skin. Algae coming out of my mouth. A small crab-like thing crawling right on my eye and getting lost inside the lifeless cavern of my skull. But I'm not dead. Am I? The horrendous head opens its slack jaw a little wider, and against everything that's holy and sacred, it speaks.
I want you, and only you here, Stephen Cruz.
I close my eyes tightly. I grind my teeth, and then I let out the loudest scream my body can manage. No! The last men from my crew have to use all their strength to drag me away while I keep screaming and thrashing on the floor. They look down at the water, visibly perplexed, and they find nothing but calm water, of course. When we finally reach the docks, we're all beyond exhausted. All but one man have let me know they're not coming back to work, and I don't need a sign from heaven to know the last one will disappear from my life. There's a lot to consider. I need to figure out if this is for better or for worse, but there will be time for that later. As soon as the last man steps out of my boat, I turn around simply and turn the engines on again. They protest weakly, and they could have stopped or at least joined me if they really wanted to. But, I think they decided it was less daunting to break the news to my family that I lost my mind and got lost at sea than joining me in whatever madness I had fallen into. But this isn't madness, Father, is it? I know you have a sacred purpose for me, and you wouldn't put me through this cursed hell for nothing, would you? There's a meaning behind the terror you've sent my way. I know it. You took my best friend, my crew, and I'm afraid you've taken away my sanity too. But you resurrected these waters and brought food to my table and hope to my town. I can't thank you enough, my lord. I thank you, my dear father. So now, it's just me and my boat, heading deep into the ocean. I'm unsure if I'm looking for answers or if I'm running away. But when I catch sight of a mysterious whirlpool that glows golden around the edges, I don't steer the ship away from it. When I reach the whirlpool, I lose control, and the boat rocks wildly until I'm right at the center of this ring of sparkling light. And then the boat stops rocking, and I stumble down to the floor. I crawl to the left edge and notice that a hand of stone, big enough to hold my entire ship above the water, is holding us. I don't scream this time. There's nothing I can do. Distantly, I wonder if I have stumbled upon the gates of heaven. That's when a voice addresses me from the bottom of the whirlpool. From a face I can't see and can't imagine what it looks like, the hand holding us trembles as it speaks.
Stephen, my son, Are you ready to do whatever your god asks of you?
I stand up on unsteady legs, and with tears streaming down my face, I whisper, You're not my god.
You prayed and I answered.
The voice replies, No, 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 I didn't pray to you. Who are you? I scream. There's a deep growl coming from the water, and the giant hand holding my ship shakes so hard I have to grip the railing to stand upright.
You begged and I delivered. Now you owe me.
The entity yells back at me. You're not my god! Get away from me! You're not what I asked for! No! I cry out, sobbing so hard it hurts my entire body. I hear the hull of my boat start to crack under the pressure of that mighty hand, and I can't get enough air into my lungs. I feel like a fool that lost everything to a false god, but all I have left are my next words. Yes, I bow down to you, my lord.
I am so tired. I'm so desperate for sleep that it's beginning to be painful. Every muscle in my body feels tense. My head feels like it could burst open at any moment. And my eyes are burning. I don't need a mirror to know there are deep bags under my eyes, but I've given up about caring about that sort of thing a while ago. When I picked up physics as a career, I dreamed I would end up as a respectable professor in some nice university. Instead, after coming across a relatively secret discovery in my field that confirms rather than merely suggesting not only the existence of other dimensions, but the viable possibility of making real contact with them. I lost myself. I have dedicated the last few months of my life. I don't even remember how many, to the study of this case. The laboratory I'm building in my house is almost ready. For now, I'm practically living in the library with my head buried in a mountain of books that deal with this subject. I need to know everything. Everything there is to know. And then I need to make it all come together. Answer the questions. Solve the puzzle. Open the portal to another dimension. However, I must be more tired than I thought. The library is empty, except for me. The silence is ringing in my ear, and the cold breeze of the night is making me shiver. But the most concerning thing is this textbook in front of me. The words are suddenly blurry, and no matter how hard I rub my eyes or how many times blink, it only gets worse. It's not just blurry, the words are melting and running against each other, moving. They are alive. I look around me, not exactly looking for help, since I've repeatedly turned down everyone that has offered me assistance on this secret project. I just want to confirm that everything but the words on the page still looks the same. I should likely be alarmed by the text coming to life in front of my face. However, I am just fascinated by this phenomenon. There's a theory that says other dimensions are constantly reaching out in every direction. It's just a matter of knowing how to read the signs. I've determined that the experiments and research we're doing on this dimension must qualify as reaching out to the other side as well. If we coincide with another dimension and we reach out at the same time, blurring the lines between one dimension and another, then my experiment will be a success. This textbook could be a sign. This could be a significant connection. Quickly, I move over to one of my notebooks. There's a mess around me, but I manage to get a hold of a pencil to write down my observations. I'm thinking about describing what I see, theorizing possibilities, testing other senses, asking if it's really the pages or my eyes making the interdimensional connection. Oh, I start laughing as I write, figuring that anyone watching would probably think I'm crazy. A lunatic that believes she's crossing to another dimension when it's all merely a lack of sleep. Well, I think that's bullshit. I think I'm on the verge of... I think... Wait. What's going on? My hand, it feels strange. I don't think I can feel it at all somehow. And yet, I can see it moving. It holds the pencil and moves over the pages, but on its own accord. That's when I feel the very first spark of fear in me. But I look past it and focus on the possibilities of this situation. I can't move my hand away, so my only option is to lean in and read what this rebellious limb is working on. I can't help but gasp as I read out loud the words. Let me in. Keep working. Turn around. Let me in. I need you. Accept that you will be mine. Let me in. Well, there's excitement in me, yes. But there's a sense of terror too. I can't separate the two of them right now. I pull on my arm as hard as I can until my hand lets go, loses its free will, and the momentum sends me flying backward, falling over my chair and down to the floor. My breathing is ragged, and I'm shaking. I try to convince myself that this is a good thing, but I need to think. I need to get out of here. I move up to my feet and begin to sprint away from the table through the hallways of the library. However, I stop dead in my tracks for a moment. I realize just what I've done. I turned around without thinking, like the note to my hand wrote without my consent. Did I just make a terrible mistake? The realization makes my chest ache in fear. I feel the tall bookshelves get closer and closer, as if they're going to fall on me. The hallway turns darker until it's pitch black, and I can't see past my nose. I have to run. I turn around once again, but this time something blocks my path. I crash right against another body. But I was all alone in the library, wasn't I? And this is not a human body, is it? When we crashed together, I felt solid and strong like a rock. But now that I'm just standing there, vulnerable, cold and shaking, this thing isn't solid. It's like smoke, a tower of shimmering black smoke standing over me. I'm forced to accept there's no escape. So I let my curiosity win, and very slowly I start looking up. I know I'm searching for a face, eyes, an answer, anything. All I'm greeted with is a voice so loud it feels as if it came from right inside my skull.
Let me in.
I wake up from the nightmare, gasping for air, as if I had been drowning in dark waters. I'm trembling as if the room was freezing, even though winter is long gone. My erratic heart beats like a drum, and my ears are ringing painfully. I look down at the textbook, which I had fallen asleep on top of, and everything looks normal. I glance at my open notebooks, and there aren't any ominous words on them. The only thing that could possibly suggest that it had been more than a dream is the severe cramp in my right hand. The phantom pain of being forced to grip a pencil and write down threats against my own will. If this by any chance was some kind of warning, a blessing that should discourage me from pushing forward with my research, then I'm thoroughly debating on ignoring it. I'm taking this as a sign, a green light urging me to go on. A hand from another dimension begging me to meet it halfway. It's time to leave the library behind. I'm taking this discovery home. My house is of little importance, though. All that matters to me now is the attic. I transformed that quiet, dark space into a makeshift laboratory. That will allow me the opportunity to attempt contact with the other dimensions. Nobody knows about my laboratory. I know that no one in their right mind would approve of the lack of safety protocols here. But they don't understand the importance of this project. Everyone has priorities. I'm doing this just for me, not even for all of humanity. I'm working for this and all other dimensions. The magnitude of that statement is so magnificent that it takes my breath away and fills me with all the energy and determination I need to succeed. This is a lonesome task, And yet somehow, I'm never alone. First, but most easily to ignore, are the constant phone calls from family and friends. Loved ones that claim to be worried about me. They should be ecstatic. I've never felt better in my life. Every time my body complains about the lack of rest or nourishment, it is more than enough for me to remember what I'm putting all my efforts into. This excitement is enough to heal anything and everything. There's another kind of company, though. The dream. It all started with that nightmare at the library. And it's only gotten worse. Or rather, more common. For me, I think it's better. Most dreams are quite vague or incomprehensible. Those are my favorites. They give me the impression of being a first glimpse into another dimension. I dream of voices and shadows and infinitely high towers of dark smoke that are impossible to walk through. There are more disturbing kinds of dreams, of course. Endless tunnels and bottomless pits. Screams that ring in my ears for the rest of the day. And sparks of lightning that not only can I see behind my eyelids when I sleep, but feel the burn of the shock on my skin. I can't waste any more time. I can tell my laboratory is rudimentary, and I have to work fast before the people at the university can think of double-checking the inventory. I'm not a thief, and I'm not crazy. I know that when I finish this experiment, all of them will have to thank me. If only I could make the portals work. Math is, well, it's perfect. It never fails. I know my calculations are correct, but there's always something missing. The energy levels aren't right. They aren't enough. The only time I got close to creating a portal, instead, I got a citywide blackout and the firefighters knocking on my door. Luckily, I can tell I'm not the only one reaching out. The signs are all around me. Good signs, I tell myself. Sometimes I catch my reflection, either in the mirror or something as small as a spoon, and I don't recognize myself. There's a shadow. There's somebody else. There's nothing at all. There's that dark, shimmering smoke giving way to large eyes getting closer and closer. But it always fades before I get a good look. A different dimension is closer than ever, and I'm going to be the one that makes the first contact. However, I can't ignore the needs of my body forever. A glass of water and a piece of bread can be enough to keep me alive, and a quick shower surely won't ruin all hard work. The only problem is the warm water feels too good. My muscles finally relax. My skin tingles with pleasure. A minute turns into 2, turns into 5, and then 10. I close my eyes for a moment, and my entire body sways. I've been so exhausted that a moment of relaxation nearly sent me straight into unconsciousness. But an unfamiliar feeling wakes me up in time. the water pooling on the floor and around my feet. There's something wrong with it. It's moving differently. I hastily turn off the shower and watch with curiosity as the water on the floor refuses to go down the drain, refuses to stand still. Instead, the water ripples like the oceans and starts transforming quickly. It gains density as I watched it turn into something closer to a gel-like substance. It's not simple liquid anymore. It makes me grin maniacally. There! This is another sign. I have to get out and record this breathtaking scene. It could be the beginning of a... It could be the beginning of a portal. I get 1 foot out of the shower, and when I'm about to pull the other, a hand reaches out and grabs me. A hand came out of the water. A hand solidified from the water. Mysterious. Impossible. Terrible and vicious. It holds on to my ankle with brutal strength. And the worst mistake I could have made was trying to fight it. The next thing I know, the hand pulls with great strength, and I stumble down quick. Everything turns black. When I wake up coughing, I'm lying on the worn-down couch I keep in the attic. I'm safe, alone, still in my dimension, wearing my regular clothes, simply waking up from a nightmare, a dream, a sign. But was it just that? When I make a movement to stand from the couch, a terrible pain shoots up from my ankle and progressively gets worse. When I try to take a look, I realize my wrist hurts in equal measure, as if something in real life, not in a dream, had pulled on my feet and my hand had taken the worst of my fall. I immediately get goosebumps. I've told myself time and time again that I'm prepared to risk everything for this project, but actually risking my safety, well, it frightens me in a way I simply can't ignore. My wrist could be broken, but I'm hoping for a simple sprain. Either way, I have to do something about it. Not without struggling, I get up from the couch, and I haven't taken more than 2 steps when I hear a voice from behind me.
I'm here. I'm here for you.
I'm frozen in place. I did it. I made contact with a parallel dimension.
I appreciate your assistance. I need to study you too. I have learned a lot, but I would be played by your rules.
Those words don't sit right with me. It's not that I expected the upper hand exactly, but I was hoping for an equal, not something else thinking they're more than me. Unless
I am your god, the one you've been waiting for, and I demand your body in offering.
a million different things pass by my mind in the span of a second. All the warnings, but also the possibilities. The dangers, but also my options. I'm thinking about math and my perfect calculations. I'm thinking about ancient rituals and prayers. I'm thinking about myths and heroes. When I finally turn around, there are tears in my eyes. Happy, scared, successful, ruined. All the emotions explode within me when I finally see it. The portal. The crack between our dimensions opening up in the middle of my attic like a shining miracle. I finally see him. The smoke, the shadow, the entity, the god. I didn't do this for a god. I tell him simply, of all the questionable choices I made in the past, this is one I'm most confident in. I walk forward, slow and steady. I ignore the angry warnings from the so-called god that needs to own a body before crossing the abyss. And I throw myself right at this interdimensional portal. Knowing for a fact that my feeble body doesn't have what it takes to cross it. And hoping it won't take too long before the police kick down the front door of my house and finds my severely charred body lying here without offering an explanation for my death.
In the arms of despair, we find solace. We are the sons of the earth, a different race. In times of strife, we remember the life we had lived before we took the knife. With nature's strength, we take each breath. We bear no burdens until death. We live each day like our last, until our days are gone and left in the past. That's a nice poem, Alex, I said calmly. I could see the shadow of fear hovering over him. This was our first major mission in the army, and Alex is like a brother to me. We sailed through the violent storms of the academy together, and he is expecting his first child. The instructions had come suddenly. We were sent to fight another man's war, and we had no choice. We had to leave everything behind in the name of duty. We had to stand and defend with honor and pride. Who do you think is right? Alex asked. It doesn't matter who is right, Alex. Sometimes it's not about who is right, but who is left. This will be over soon, brother. I just want to go home, Alex whispered. Our mission had led us to the borders of a country in Western Africa, ravaged by terrorism and war. In the heart of the Kumbutu forest, a few of our women had been abducted by the terrorists a few months ago, and a delegate was sent back to get them. A live recording of their lifeless bodies was sent back to the ministry, giving birth to an instant declaration of war against them. We'd already lost countless lives, and it didn't seem to be getting any better. We lost Sam last week in an unexpected attack. Sam was the life of the team. He brought smiles to the faces of even the toughest soldiers with his jokes. His death came as a surprise, and it hit us hard. The entire camp now just felt empty, void of any sort of emotion, almost like a graveyard. Like it was plagued with the silent cries from ghosts. Ghosts of men we had known. It had become the norm for someone to spring up in the middle of the night screaming for sanity. Screaming from terrible nightmares. Nightmares filled with dreams of death or the dead. I began to breathe faster. Something was wrong. My heart suddenly began to pace. I felt like something was watching. I stared openly into the darkness of the night. The only sound that could be heard was the rustling sound of the leaves in the distance. I began to shiver in the intense heat as my eyes searched the camp. The night was dark, I'd say. The stars suddenly lost their light. Is the darkness moving? I swallowed hard. A strange chill engulfed my entire body as I stared toward where Alex lay. Alex? Alex was gone. Along with everyone else in the camp. Fear gripped me as the strange darkness drew closer. 2 bright eyes pop out from within the darkness. Am I dreaming? I thought to myself. I grabbed my gun and pointed at the darkness.
You are brave.
A strange voice sounded from the darkness.
You are fearless. I want your courage and strength. Come now, my son. Give in to me.
Its voice sounded like a roar of thunder, but I'd seen enough chaos in my life, and I was no stranger to death. I was not scared of it. Who are you? I barked. I'm not afraid of you.
I am your God, and you shall kneel before me.
The entity replied. I will never kneel before you. Whatever you are, I'm not scared of you. I do not fear death. I replied. Whatever I had just said seemed to have hit a nerve. That's if it had one anyway.
There are a few things worse than death, Christopher Dale.
The darkness grew with terror and intensity and began to swirl around me. 1,000 voices invaded my ears. They sounded like trapped souls, screaming for freedom. I clasped my hands against my ears to shut out the growing chaos. One thing was certain. If it could harm me, then it wouldn't be asking my permission to submit. I stood my ground, looking straight into its eyes. Christopher, what the hell is wrong with you? I gasped in shock, breathing heavily, my hands against my ears. Alex was staring at me in confusion along with several men. I pushed them all aside. I needed to throw up. Just a bad dream, I mumbled. I had hardly caught my breath when the emergency alarm rang out. We were under attack. This was the second time in 1 week. Pandemonium broke out in the camp as everyone grabbed their weapons and attempted to take cover. Echoes of gunfire erupted in the distance. I exchanged glances with Alex.
I will have your service.
The voice returned. I swallowed hard. Alex, I think you should stay back. No, Chris. I know you're just trying to look out for me, but I'm a soldier. I chose this path and I'll walk it. Let's teach these bastards how we fight. There was an uneasy feeling that clouded the entire room. Who was this strange being in my dream? I thought. It felt so real.
I am more real than the air you breathe.
The voice returned. Oh, shit! Get the hell out of my head! I groaned in anger. Alex stopped for a while and did a quick double take. Come on, Chris! What's wrong? We need to join the rest! I nodded in affirmation, grabbed my gun, and raced towards the direction of the growing chaos. Something was wrong. My sight began to blur as I staggered forward. The terrorists knew that we were expecting some reinforcements, so they came with everything against us, for one last sweep. We had diminished in number, and there was no way we could win without a few extra men. Alex and I fought together. It was a spontaneous battle, and all of our tactical skills were put to the test. The terrorists poured in from every corner, but they weren't looking like terrorists. In fact, they weren't even looking human. They looked like some sort of otherworldly creatures. What the hell is happening to me? I thought out loud. Am I going crazy? I stopped shooting for a moment and shut my eyes.
I am your God, and your will is mine.
I opened my eyes. Nothing had changed. The strange creatures still approached us, dark and deformed. Alex, I think something is wrong with... Alex? Alex was gone. and there was a lot more of those creatures surrounding me now, including where Alex was just stationed a few moments ago. I need to get out of here, I thought. I lunged out from my hiding place, running away from the battlefield when a stray bullet grazed my arm. I fell to the floor in shock. Several men approached me, but I couldn't differentiate friend from foe. They all looked the same. Dark, deformed, and filthy creatures.
Defend yourself. Show them your fire. Kill them all.
I don't know why, but I obeyed the voice. I pointed my gun at the incoming threat and fired several rounds at them, and I watched as they all dropped to the ground. Everywhere went calm for a moment, and my normal vision was restored. My mates retreated, and the terrorist, shocked by my most recent actions, stopped short. I shifted my gaze towards the bodies that lay before me. My eyes widened and my jaw instantly dropped. Alex's face was covered in blood. I crept towards him, slowly, crying and yelling at the top of my voice. No! No! Shit! What have I done? What have I done? Oh shit! Oh shit, Alex! Oh shit! Oh! Oh shit, Alex! Alex, no! Alex! Alex! I just killed my brother in arms. Alex! No! Alex, no! How did I do this? How did I do this? No! Alex, no! What I felt was beyond pain. I cradled Alex's head in my arms as I continued to sob loudly. Alex, no. Oh, God, Alex. This was not meant to happen.
I want your service.
The voice returned. I am going to kill you! I barked back.
You cannot kill what is already dead.
I heard again. The armed terrorists gathered around me, a perplexed look on their faces. They spoke a strange dialect. I didn't care about what they were going to do to me. The voice was right. There are some things worse than death. I was going to kill it, no matter the cost. I had nothing else to live for anyway. I would be branded a traitor to my country, to everything I had spent years fighting for. It didn't sound logical, but I would not stop until I had burned it down. Everything. If it couldn't control me without my permission, then it was not my creator. It must have an end, and I would cease its life. Suddenly, a crashing pain sank into my skull. Next thing that came was total darkness.
Welcome back, Christopher Dale.
The dark entity's voice had returned. Are you? I asked.
I am your god. I will.
Oh, come on! Cut that shit out! You are not my god. You were just some desperate and helpless coward, and I promise, I will kill you! And I'm gonna send you back into whatever dark hole you crept out from.
Your bravery amuses me, Christopher Dale.
I woke up in a cell. My hands and feet were bound. I was a prisoner in their camp. I was alone. I could sight a few of them in the distance. They were engrossed in some sort of argument. One of them soon strolled into my cell, motioning for me to follow him. I forced myself up and staggered forward. I was led to a man seated calmly in a tent, his dark skin glowing under the dim light. His prominent bald head stood out, and his muscular figure stood firm underneath his dark green uniform. He had cold eyes and a firm grip around his gun. He must have sent countless souls into the underworld. Who sent you? He said in a foreign accent. Finally, some English, I mused. Why did you betray your brothers? he continued. I remained quiet. Even if I told him, he wasn't going to believe me anyway. No one would believe me. That some sort of demon in my mind tricked me into killing them. It sounded absurd even to me.
I am your god. I want your service. Show them your fire. I will give you the strength you need.
The darkness returned. I was tired of the pestering. I was tired of living. I blamed the terrorists for his death, and I wanted them to burn too as much as I did the dark entity. Perhaps I would play along. For now. Just to get what I wanted. With his help, I will destroy the terrorist and eventually take my own life. I dropped to my knees. I submit. I could feel the uncertainty in its voice as it spoke now. A thick darkness began to swirl around me.
And I will be your god.
The dark entity replied, Yes, you will be my god. Now, hurry and get this over with. Hey, who was he talking to? Search him! The bald man barked. Several men moved towards me quickly. My mind was 1,000 worlds away from the present as the dark entity carved its way into my body. I could feel him taking hold of every muscle in my body. Ugh. God. I groaned in pain as every bit of my body came under submission to him. A powerful wind swept throughout the camp, ripping the tents into pieces. I could feel an enormous power pump into my veins in a flash. The terrorist blasted several rounds at me, and I felt the impact on my skin, but I couldn't feel a single ounce of pain. Suddenly, a massive portal appeared before me, throwing all the men off their feet. My chains were broken, and I could visibly see a mighty dark figure emerge from beyond the portal.
I am your god.
He was now speaking through me. I had become his expression. I was still conscious of everything around me. A dark flame erupted out of nothingness, making the entire camp tremble under the force. You are not going anywhere! I let out. My voice sounded like thunder, and my eyes shone with a violet red. I had earlier thought that I was going to be fully possessed by the dark entity, but I was wrong. My mind, thoughts, and memories were still intact. I could see his memories too. I could see the price he had to pay to open the portal into our world. A professor. Who is Dr. Karina Luna? I wondered. He wasn't as powerful as I thought. You are no god. You're just a desperate parasite. I scoffed. The one-dimensional being now had full control of me. He began to speak aloud.
Parasite. Such naivety, Christopher Dale. I am Kenai, and I bring a balance to every world I gain access to. Let me show you what I can do.
I began to levitate as a strange but powerful aura swirled around me. I wondered how two beings could exist in one body. Somehow, I feared that a contest would soon arise. I had other ideas, but Kenai was not stupid either. He probably just needed enough time in my body to gain absolute control. I needed to find a way to gain the upper hands. The terrorists stopped for a moment to take a quick glance at the incoming threat. Their faces were engulfed with terror. A few of them tried shooting at us, but it was hopeless.
I am Kenai, and you will all kneel before me.
As he spoke, a dark cloud proceeded from my palms. I watched in dread at the sudden change of events. It seemed as though time stood still. He wasn't planning to kill them. He wanted to control them. That's his ability. He could only manipulate the mind earlier, but now, I had given him an all-access pass to Earth. He could now control and bend the will of men. My anger grew, but I couldn't do a thing. I watched in dread as all the terrorists dropped to the ground under his control. "Lord, what shall we do?" They all chorused in a seemingly hypnotic voice. I didn't think this through. I felt helpless once again, and for the second time in a short period, I was once again plagued with the disturbing question: what have I done? I knew that I had a powerful will, but Kenai seemed omnipotent. For Alex's sake, I was never going to give up. I had to find a way.
They say that a magician never reveals his secrets. I never knew that magic had secrets anyway. I just did magic. My father was a great magician, so it was deeply rooted in my genes. I didn't create illusions or make tricks as other magicians did. I performed real magic. At least, so I thought. A dwarf flame sat patiently on my shoulder as I prepared for my last performance for the day. I stared out through the window which hung on the wall beside me. It was a dark and stormy night, and the street was littered with several people going about their business. The heavy storm had passed, leaving behind the muddy scent of wet soil and a cold feeling of nostalgia. Memories of my father, who had died a few weeks ago, strolled across the length and breadth of my thoughts as I put on my costume. The fun times I had with him as a kid, and the myriad of magic tricks he had taught me from a young age. The mystery behind his death still plagued my thoughts, and I longed to know what had happened that night. You miss him too, don't you? The dwarf flame nodded in agreement, burning calmly but not consuming. Two kinds of flames exist in this earthly realm: the divine flame of order and the flame of chaos. There is always a contest between both on Earth. The contest between order and chaos has gone on since time immemorial. My father tapped into a spark of divine order, and his power transferred to me before his death. I am not just a magician. I believe that I am something more. I don't know what purpose awaits me in the distant future, but I can feel that I was born for a specific point in the timelines of destiny.
Hey, Hugo, get your ass out here. We don't have all day, you know?
That was the storekeeper, an art teacher in the college downtown, but whenever he was not standing in front of a class, he was selling circus items and organizing magic shows to earn some extra bucks. He had seen me perform a few nights ago and decided to invite me to his store to perform magic tricks and attract more customers. A tiny smile crept across his lips as I strolled towards him.
I can see you're having fun with your heated friend over there.
He said, pointing towards the dwarf flame which sat calmly on my shoulder. I forced a quiet smile. Meet Fuego. Fuego Martin. The dwarf flame gave a slight wave at Martin. Martin's excitement seemed to grow with each second.
Encantado, Señor Fuego.
Martin mused. Nice to meet you too, I answered. A gift from my father, shortly before he left me.
Can I touch him?
Martin asked sheepishly. Of course, he won't burn you, unless I want him to. Martin stretched his hand towards Fuego. He jumped excitedly like a little child. Come on, show us a little trick, Fuego, I encouraged. Martin hurried out of his store and into the street. I grabbed my hat and strode closely behind. There was an eerie feeling in the air, and even the owl, which sat patiently in a secluded corner high up in a nearby building, seemed to be interested in whatever I was about to display to the uninterested bunch of onlookers. The moon had also become a spectator as the calm evening breeze swept across the street. It was a peaceful night, but I could hear the silent whispers of chaos in the order. I shrugged off the thought and focused on my act.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Come around, come now. Welcome to you all. Now, please give a warm welcome to tonight's entertainment.
Martin's voice blasted out from the speakers.
Hugo and Fuego.
I adjusted my hat and jumped forward. I decided to perform several iconic flame acts, but what is a magician without some patter? And so, I began. Fire! It creates and destroys. It makes and breaks. It consumes and gives. Order and chaos merged in an element. Restless and adventurous. As I spoke, Fuego began to grow in size and intensity, dancing to the rhythm of my words. He crafted out several sinister-looking figures against the wall with his shadow. Martin turned off the light in his store to give a clearer view, and we soon began to attract everyone's attention. Fire! A powerful force. It cannot be contained, cannot be hidden, but it is the element of divine order. Some people often call me a wizard or a sorcerer of some sort, but I do not believe I am. Sorcery is born out of chaos, but my abilities are born out of divine order. Fuego seemed to be enjoying the rhythm and progression of my words. He danced freely and carelessly, morphing into several mythical creatures at intervals. A fiery serpent, a phoenix, a twin-tailed tiger, and a majestic leopard. Scores of people had stopped to watch, and they stared in awe at the marvelous sight. Fuego had never expressed himself this freely before. This was one of the most intense acts I had ever performed. Immense energy surged throughout my entire body as different colors of fire soon morphed out, forming a strange yet beautiful alliance. I began to feel uncomfortable when some people began to take photos and videos of the act. I wanted to round up the act as soon as possible, but Fuego refused to stop. Fuego, stop, I said calmly, but he ignored me. Fuego, stop, I said more forcefully this time. I was beginning to feel impatient. Fuego was now dancing as high as 7 feet. The heat coming off Fuego intensified every second. This wasn't meant to happen. It could only mean one thing. I was losing control. Fuego was a flame of order and was only meant to burn at my command and never at his own will. In a flash, I saw it. An enigma sat in the corner nearby, watching calmly. It was a different kind of flame. A dark flame. My heart skipped a beat. Fuego! Detente! My voice echoed throughout the street like thunder as my eyes shone with fire. Fuego raged at the sound of my voice as a dark flame engulfed him, raging with his intensity. I shall be your god. A dreadful voice emanated from within the dark flame. It began to consume Fuego in its chaotic fire. I wasn't the only one seeing this strange display. The flame caught Martin's store and began to spread further as Martin screamed with dread. Onlookers scampered away from the side of the growing chaos as Fuego's muffled screams for help could be heard. I'd be damned if I'd let anything happen to my flame. Who are you? I barked with evident contempt in my words. I am your destiny. I am your doom. No one shall burn. I am Kenai, god of all the realm. The strange darkness soon began to take the form of a human being. An odd feeling crept up from the soles of my feet to the top of my head. It felt like a rushing wave of warm water, flooding against my entire body. A powerful energy lit up inside me as I began to mumble a few words, and with a scream, I stretched my hands towards the dark flame. A blue fire blasted out from my palms and engulfed the dark flame, ripping it away from Fuego. This had never happened before, but I didn't care. I was tearing down the dark flame, and that was all that mattered. Fuego! Burn! I yelled with earnest zeal. Fuego responded instantly, erupting from within, bursting out with a surge of energy and uniting with the blue flame that had earlier come out from my hands. The darkness was gone, and a sudden peace descended on the entire street. Fuego quickly put out the fires that it consumed. There were no casualties, and Martin's store sustained only a little damage. I breathed hard as I started at Fuego. He slowly began to reduce in size. The clouds began to protest too, as the heavens thundered with increasing ferocity. A storm was coming. Martin was speechless and stricken with fear. I thanked him and meandered my way around the scanty crowd, out of the street and into the night. What was that dark flame that I had seen? A multitude of thoughts plagued my mind. I had to find out what was going on. The next few days strolled in with strange anticipation for something. Sleep had evaded me. I had seen that flame before. It was on the day my father died. What was I missing? What is my connection with all of this? Why is it back? Why is it after Fuego? I began to ask myself several questions, one after the other, as I drifted into oblivion. Darkness does not exist, I mused. Darkness is simply the absence of light, just as chaos is simply the absence of order, and they do not have an existence of their own. If I burn with the fires of divine order, then no darkness of chaos can take me down. I began to search through my father's books and journals. I needed to know what was happening. I stumbled on a sinister-looking book, but it wasn't the book that caught my attention. There were some inscriptions written inside. My father's handwriting. It was a letter addressed to me. My son, I fear that I may not have much longer to stay on this earth. Trust in my gift to you. Let its light guide you. There is a whole lot that I would love to tell you, but I am afraid I do not have enough time. We are more than just magicians, Hugo. We are keepers of the flames of divine order upon the earth, and we maintain a balance between order and chaos. A strange darkness is upon us. A powerful being of chaos seeks to gain entry into our world and control the very scales that keep the balance. I have failed in my duty, son. I could not stop this darkness. I fear that it might be too late. I am sorry that I leave you with such heavy burdens. This was never my plan, but you are next in line to carry the flames of order. The darkness will come for you before he begins his conquest. He knows that you are a threat to his grand plan. Find the others. Follow the light, and it will guide you. Protect it, and listen to my voice at all times. I will always be with you, Hugo. Te amo, mi hijo. Papa. I could not stop the tears from rolling down my cheeks as I read his words. My father had attempted to stop this dark entity from gaining entry into our world. It seems as though he failed, and it had cost him his life. I could feel anger growing inside of me. No, Hugo. I tried to control myself. We win by the flames of love, and not hate. This entity had most likely killed my father. The desire for revenge coursed through my veins, but I had to be patient. Chaos is simply the absence of order, and all I needed to do was to bring the ancient divine order against this darkness. I needed to learn all that I could about what my father meant by being a keeper of the divine flame. I began to read to the books that Fuego guided me to. Fuego also guided me to some powerful relics and objects, unveiling the power within them to me. One of the relics caught my attention. It was a beautifully crafted archaic staff. It had this luminescent aura around it. Fuego had become my teacher, or shall I say, my mentor. Sometimes it felt as though it was my father speaking to the flames. I felt peace. What did my father mean by the others, Fuego? I pondered my father's words. Who are the others, I thought? Are there other people who somewhat play distinct roles in this event? My gaze wandered to the heavens. What do I do, Father? I cried out. Suddenly, a presence made itself felt in the silence of the room. Fuego flared up. My dwarf flame could feel it too. I could feel the strange presence hover somewhere in the room, and I would recognize that feeling anywhere. The darkness had returned. All the hairs on my body stood firm. I stood up abruptly and prepared for whatever crawled out from the corner of the room. A young man strolled out. His eyes were dark, but this was no human. I am not afraid of you. I don't expect you to be Hugo Valdez, he replied. What do you want? I asked curiously, while casually strolling towards the side of the room. My peripheral vision concentrated on the strange staff that Fuego had shown me earlier. I am Kenai, and I shall bring the balance to your world. My darkness shall spread into this realm. You cannot evade your destiny, and just like your father will be mine. I didn't know exactly what the staff could do, but Fuego figured that I was after it, and he was in support. He blazed towards the staff and began to spin around it. That was my cue. I darted towards it, grabbed it, and pointed it menacingly towards the dark being. I felt a sudden surge of confidence as I spoke. No, you are wrong. When I turn on a switch in a dark room, will the darkness contend with the light? It was a rhetorical question, but the darkness seemed to understand what I was implying. It has always been the natural order for darkness to dissipate once light is introduced. Kenai felt the sting. He knew that I was a serious threat. Suddenly, Kenai spoke in a much different tone and voice. Find Karina! She is the key! Follow the light! What the hell was that? I mused. Perhaps the young man in front of me had served as a host for Kenai, and that might be his consciousness trying desperately to communicate with me. With a loud cry, I focused my energy on the staff as a white flame emanated from it and stormed towards Kenai. The dark entity clouded himself in a thick darkness and vanished. One question now sat in the center of my heart. Who is Karina?
He wanted access into our world, and he has gotten it. 5 complete strangers, 5 mind-bending situations, and one big mystery that will defy everything they used to believe was real. Some people are born to be fighters. People that are dangerously susceptible to tempting propositions, and others that will become completely different people in the face of life-threatening moments. All of them will come together as witnesses of a terrible and tragic event. The boundaries of reality, space, and time have been broken. They have come across a series of cracks in our dimension, and someone or something is calling them from the other side. In the arms of despair, we find solace. We are sons of the earth, a different race. In times of strife, we remember the life we had lived before we took the knife. With nature's strength, we take each breath. We bear no burdens until our death. We live each day like our last, until our days are gone and left in the past.
Where am I? What did you do to me?
You no longer exist. In the world you know, you are dead. Thank you for your offering and your order. You will remain in this place until my work in your realm is done. Then you will cross into your eternity.
Dead? How can I be dead? What do you mean by my eternity?
Hello, Karina. I'm Christopher Dale. I'm in your mind. I do not have much time, but this is the best I can do to help.
Where am I? I have been working on discovering a portal into another world for ages, but I never thought it was going to end this way. I don't even know what is going on. Am I dead? How did you get into my head? Who are you? And how am I speaking to you with my mind?
Like I said earlier, I do not have much time. I have to be careful so that he does not discover that I'm speaking with you.
He? What do you mean?
I was a soldier in the army. We were sent to Africa to contain a terrorist threat. But he got into my head. He made me kill my brother, Alex. I agreed to submit to him with an ulterior motive. But I was a fool. I shouldn't have expected him to bow to my demands. We are not like the rest on Earth. That is why he is coming for us. We are the keepers of the divine order of our realm, and he wants our order. I was able to access this knowledge when he merged with me. He is a being of chaos, and he plans to bring destruction into our worlds. He possessed my body, but he couldn't get a full hold on my consciousness. I know you might not understand what I'm saying, but what I need you to know is that some people are going to start searching for you soon. They will help you restore your order and ignite your fire, but you have to be ready. I have to go now, and yes, he is right. You no longer exist in our realm, but it can be restored if your will to live is strong enough. This is the best I can do for now. I will leave trails to this place so that they can find you. Wait for them, and be strong. When the hour comes, Karina, you'll know what to do.
That's a lot to process. Oh God. Oh, okay. I'll wait. Thank you.
In the heart of Istanbul, destiny is about to align as two strangers, already acquainted in their dreams, make their way to the central market. A force has been calling out to them ever since their encounter with the dark entity. Both of them have one thing in common. They did not give in.
This has to be the place. What is so special about this place? Why do I keep having dreams about here? The horse statue, that weird fountain. I can't be mistaken. I feel like something is waiting for me out here.
You're right. Something is waiting for you, but it's not out here. I called you to this place, but your questions would not be answered by staring at the sky. And, oh, I know about your little webbed friends.
Who are you? How do you know about that? Wait, you're the guy from my dreams.
I will tell you everything you need to know, but you must trust me, and we would need to go somewhere safer. Something dark is approaching and is now here. We need to be careful. Even the walls have ears.
Okay, am I seeing things again, or is that fire walking?
Natalie, meet Fuego. There is a lot I need to tell you. Most of it is not going to make sense, but I assure you that every word that will proceed from my lips is true. And once again, you must trust me. And Fuego, of course.
This might sound funny, but for the past few days, you're the only one that seems to have made sense. Everyone called me crazy. Even my friend Marie suggested that I go see a doctor. I was sure I was fine. You seem like the missing piece to the puzzle. I had to stop my music sessions when the visions got terrible. I began to seek answers, and I'm glad I found you. Or you found me. So, yes, I trust you. It's not like I have much of a choice anyway. My eyes have gone weak, and I'm tired from crying. He wants me to submit to him so badly, but I don't want to. I think he's the devil, or some sort of demon.
Music lessons, you said?
Yeah, I'm a musician.
So, you must be Harmony then.
Harmony? What do you mean?
Would you like some tea?
Yes, please.
Alright then. Have a seat.
So, you mentioned about Harmony. What do you mean?
For the last few days, I have been plagued with a series of visions, premonitions, and dreams about what has been, what is, and what could be. Everything seems to be happening so fast, and I have had to grow in knowledge as fast as I can. Fuego here has been my guide. The flame, yes, he was a gift from my father before he died. This entity has been called several names, but he's certainly no devil or demon. He is an alien being of chaos. He wanders through the dark cosmos, seeking worlds to devour in his darkness, but during my encounter with him, he referred to himself as Kenai. Come, take a walk with me. There is a lot that needs to be done and said, and there is so little time, but we have to find Karina Luna.
Karina Luna?
Do you know her?
You mean the crazy professor who was always obsessed with finding a... oh my god!
What's wrong?
She was always obsessed with finding a portal into another realm or dimension, and she was just declared dead. Her lifeless body was found lying in her study this morning. Eyewitnesses claim that her body vanished soon after. She was a lecturer in the college that I attended.
Oh no. He got to her first, and it seems as though she has given in. She is not dead. He just stole her order. He stole her passion and zeal and the fire that keeps it burning. He needs her alive. He must have trapped her consciousness in a pocket dimension. We need to find her and set her free. Kenai is a being of chaos, and he can only exist in this realm by feeding on the balance of the Keepers of Order. I am the first in the echelon of the Keepers, and Karina Luna is the second. He wants to take us all out. I was able to dispel him the last time, but if what you say about Karina is true, then I think it would be wiser if we avoided him for now. If he has gotten to Karina, then it seems like we have much less time than I thought. He has got Christopher too. This means we need to find Steven.
Christopher? Steven? Who are they? I think I'm lost here. Chaos, Keepers, Order, a dark entity from space? How do I play a role in all of this? Who are these Keepers?
Fuego! Quick! What is it? We have to go. He's here. He has come for us.
Where do we go?
Follow me.
You can run, but you can never hide from the darkness. It is foolish to resist. You will all serve me.
The darkness rises. The chaos spreads. They might have escaped his grasp for now, but the dark entity is relentless and growing in might. Time has become their greatest foe, and Hugo and Natalie are relentless. They must bring an end to the darkness. The portal takes them to an abandoned cottage in the heart of a dense forest.
What just happened? Where are we? Shit. My head hurts. Did we just travel through a portal?
Yes, we did. It seems as though we have an even greater task now. He has Stephen, too.
Who is Stephen? What do we do now?
Stephen is the 5th keeper. Christopher is 4th. Order is what keeps everything balanced. It is what keeps the Earth in its orbit and the stars in their places. From the creeping ants to the birds of the sky, order is the very essence that unites all things and keeps the scales balanced. There have been many who have attempted to upset the very balance that holds order in place through the introduction of chaos. Kenai is an alien entity of ancient origin, and he is no different from the rest. Every realm has keepers, keepers of the balance of order, and we are the keepers of the balance of order in this realm.
We?
Yes, you are Harmony, 3rd keeper of the balance of our realm. The mantle could either be passed by blood or choice. I became the 1st keeper after my father's death. This is why Kenai is after us. As long as we have not submitted to his will, he will not be able to spread chaos in its fullness. We will continue to be a threat to his plans. There are 5 keepers in this realm, and only when our flames of order are united can we truly dispel the chaos. Only when we are united can we truly defeat Kenai. But until then, he will continue to prey on the will of humans. I believe he is building an army, and we are running out of time.
But he already has 3 out of 5. He has Karina, Christopher, and Stephen. How can we be united when he already has them on his side?
Chaos is too chaotic to contain order, and it is not the nature for darkness to conquer light. It has never been. Everyone who rose against the light in the past always failed. Kenai possessed Christopher Dale, the courage and strength that fuels the flame of divine order. Christopher Dale seeks vengeance, and this has made his will difficult to control by Kenai.
If they know this, then why don't they just stop?
There are many beings in the multiverse, and chaos is a powerful force. It corrupts these alien creatures into seeing the possibility of victory. That is why I do not fear Kenai, because I know that he is a pawn in the hands of chaos, a tiny piece of the tapestry. The real enemy is the chaos that fuels their desire for death and destruction. But I believe that we shall stand and rise above this darkness.
This is all happening so fast. I'm not even sure what to believe anymore. Do I at least get to have some cool powers like the gateway thing you did back there? Or perhaps a dancing flame?
Fuego will teach you everything you need to know about who you are. He helped me unlock my potential in a very short time, and all he desires is that you trust him.
Why didn't we know about all of this until now?
Ages have passed since our world faced a threat from an extraterrestrial being. What once stood as truth soon became myth, and tales told to frighten children. The Keeper soon moved on to other things.
I'm sorry about my many questions, but I've got one more. What do we do now?
Listen closely. I have a plan. Christopher Dale is the key. I have gained access to Christopher Dale's dreams without Kenai's knowledge. For now, we must focus on bringing Karina back.
Fight, death, submit, yield, and resist. This is the fate of the keepers of order in our world. Kenai is assembling an army of men, enslaved under his will, as Christopher works to win Stephen back into the light. Hugo and Natalie race against time to restore Karina's essence, but the whispers of war already echo in the atmosphere. A battle between order and chaos looms, and the only thing that stands in the way of darkness are the keepers.
Christopher Dale is the key.
Several days ago.
No, you are wrong. When I turn on a switch in a dark room, will the darkness contend with the light?
Find Karina. She is the key. Find Karina. She is the key. Follow the light.
He must have broken out of Kenai's hold. This is my chance. Christopher, Stephen has been corrupted by Kenai. Try to set him free. You already have access to Kenai's memories, so you know who we are and what we must do. Free Stephen. We need his fire.
Present day.
Stephen, can you hear me? Fight the chaos. Don't give in. It's Christopher Dale. I'm in your mind. I know this is not what you planned, but you had to submit. I understand. I also had to submit too. But we cannot allow him to go on.
I can't fight it. He is my god now.
No, you were deceived. He is born of chaos and darkness, not light. He is everything your religion preaches against. I don't have much time, as he will soon regain control over my consciousness. We are keepers of the divine flame of order, and it is our duty to dispel chaos, not embrace it. Haven't you seen the chaos he's unleashed on people ever since he stepped into our world? Doesn't your religion preach peace and not war?
I don't understand. What do I do? How can I break free from this curse?
All I need from you is your word. He cannot control your will because you are a keeper of the divine order. You'll get to understand what I mean later. This is what we can still have. That is, we can still have this conversation. Your mind is still intact, just like mine. You will have to discover your fire. When the hour comes, Stephen, you will know what to do.
He is not my god. You have my word.
How do we find Karina?
I don't know. Fuego seems to have a hunch, though.
What? Then where are we going?
I trust Fuego. He has gotten me this far. I believe he will guide us to
unidentified
her.
gunmen have marched into the heart of the city capital, shooting down whoever stands in their path. This is also happening simultaneously at various locations in the world. Security operatives have not yet confirmed exactly what is causing this madness, but there have been many conspiracy theories circulating about what could be causing the pandemonium. An alien invasion or a scientific experiment gone wrong. But one thing is certain. Whatever is causing this chaos is definitely not normal.
Oh God.
The death toll
What
has
the hell
risen
is
to over
happening?
100, and these men seem to fight as though they are under some sort of mind control. Security operatives are trying their best to hold off the attack, but these men are relentless. Sources say that evacuation is currently ongoing until the cause of this mass shooting is discovered and stopped. This is Claire De La Fuente reporting from CNN headquarters, New York.
He has begun to unleash chaos upon our world. We need to do something about this, fast.
I have found the pocket dimension. I know where Karina is. Thank you, Fuego.
There has been a breach into his pocket dimension, and he can sense it. Christopher has succeeded in secretly assembling the Keepers in an alliance against Kenai. The dark one-dimensional god has begun to rain down chaos upon the earth, but he needs to stop the breach into his pocket dimension. The final stand has come, And all roads now lead to this definitive moment, as the fate of the realm rests on them. Natalie has discovered her fire. Hugo and Natalie stroll into the pocket dimension as Hugo begins to recite several ancient code verses.
Fuego! Release her!
You guys must be the people that Christopher Dale spoke about.
Yeah, that's us.
Where is this place?
Our little pocket dimension and trap for Kenai. A place of light and perfect order. This madness ends here. For my father and for our world. Together we shall dispel this darkness.
But I don't even know what to do.
You will know what to do when the time comes.
Oh, come on. You sound just like Christopher Dale.
Fuego will help with whatever he can for now.
If this is our pocket dimension, how will he find this place?
And even if he does, how do we know that he is going to come here?
I already have that covered.
He's here.
Do you little fools really think you can stop me? I am Kenai, God of chaos and death. I bring death to realms. I was there long before the stars were birthed into the dark cosmos. Do you mere humans dare challenge me?
Dude, you really need to work on your speeches. It's time. Fuego!
A dark flame blazes around Kenai as a heated duel ensues. Kenai attempts to launch towards the trio when Steven emerges out of nowhere and stabs Kenai by the neck with a blazing sword. When the time comes, you'll know what to do. Those were his last words. Kenai let out a dying scream, but he was relentless. He proceeded to draw out a dagger and drove it straight into Steven's heart.
No! No! No!
Come on, everyone! It's now or never!
Steven was still holding tight to his blazing sword. His eyes now shone pure white. He still had a little strength left, and it came with great understanding. He knew that without him, the white flame would never be born. So with the last of whatever strength was still left in him, he pushed on. Natalie whispered a few words and stretched her arm towards Kenai as he gave a loud groan. He was caught by surprise. He seemed to be trapped in some sort of chain.
You will never be my god, Christopher, now.
With a loud cry, Christopher separated himself from Kenai and began to murmur a few words. Everyone except Steven followed. The dagger had sunk deep into his heart, and it was no ordinary dagger. There was nothing that could be done, and he began to slowly transit into his eternity. The rest had to focus on the greater task ahead.
The flames of order
Shall dispel the darkness.
And break the bonds.
And the hold of chaos.
for when the light shows up.
Amidst the chaos,
Darkness ceases to exist.
The keepers focused their gazes towards Kenai as several flames erupt from their palms towards the dark cosmic being. They soon merge, forming a white sword. It appeared like lightning and shone like the sun.
This is for you, Alex, my brother.
In a flash, Christopher Dale springs up, catches the blazing sword, and dives it straight into Kenai, who was now a dark and formless entity. With a loud groan, Kenai vanished into nothingness, destroyed by the unified flames of order. A certain calm soon begins to descend upon the entire place as everyone rushed towards Steven's lifeless body. They had lost the keeper today, but they now knew who they were.
I told him I was gonna kill him.
Is it over now?
Yes. Yes. It's over. It has never been the nature of darkness to overcome light.
What do we do now that he is gone?
We do what we were always meant to do.
And what is that?
Kenai was simply a pawn in the hands of chaos. There is an even greater darkness lurking somewhere out there in the dark cosmos, and I think we might have just attracted its attention. For now, we keep watch and protect our realm from the many others like him, as we continue to keep the balance of divine order in our world. This is our purpose. This is our creed.